It's 5 o'clock. Let's get this show on the road, huh? This is our work session to discuss the policies that we intend to pass, hopefully this evening at our regular meeting, and there is no voting during a work session. And the way this is going to work is the first thing we're going to do is look at the list of second reading items that we have this evening. I'm going to call them out by name. And if you feel like you have something you need to say about that policy, raise your hand. If there is no one who has anything they need to say about that particular policy, I'm going to put it in a folder that will be able to go ahead and move through quickly once we get to the actual meeting. And if anyone has things they need to discuss, then we'll return to it. Everybody will get 2 opportunities to speak. We're going to go down the table in a row now that I can see everybody. And the first question I will be asking once we get to a suggestion for a change of policy is of Amy Matthews, our counsel from CCHA tonight. I will be asking the very simple question, is that aligned with the law? If it is, then we'll discuss it further at the meeting. If it is not, then we will not be discussing it further because we don't want to open the corporation up to any liability. The second question I will be asking is of Dr. Greiner and his team, is that aligned with our current practice? Whatever the suggestion is. If it is, wonderful, we'll talk about it further when we vote later on. If it is not, then we will move on without bringing that suggestion forward. In my email, I asked for written amendments or changes to any policies. Did anyone bring anything in writing for Roberta and Tom and myself to make our lives less difficult?
In terms of amendments policy?
Yes.
Yes, I have 2. I have an email.
Okay, super. If you could forward those at the appropriate time, if they're both legal and in accordance with the practice, that would be great.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have something, but it's mixed with my own comments and some text. Maybe I will use it. Later. I will forward to emails.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the first one we are going to be talking about is non-discrimination and anti-harassment. Oh, sorry, one more thing. We're going to stop at 6 o'clock because we have a meeting, and whatever we don't get through, we're going to push through to a third reading in April. So if we get through one, we will be looking at one policy. If we get through all 10, Yahtzee. Okay, so the first one we're going to be talking about then is the non-discrimination and anti-harassment policy number A100. Does anyone have anything they need to say? Okay, I'm going to put it in the to discuss pile. Thank you, Mrs. Witt. Number 2, A125, we already did 100. It's already in the talking pile. I just need one hand. It's fine. We're going to talk about it.
Oh, okay.
In a minute.
Okay, good.
125, nepotism, conflict of interest, gifts, and use of corporation resources. Does anyone have anything on that policy that they need to discuss with the rest of the class? Okay, that's going in the pile. Number 3, A175, whistleblower protection. Does anyone have anything they need to discuss about that one? Mrs. Mumford. Okay. Number A200, firearms, weapons, and destructive devices. Does anyone have anything? Mrs. Witt, thank you very much. A225, reporting of suspected child abuse or neglect. Mr. Wong, okay. Number A250, no tobacco. Dr. Yin, okay. Number A275, school wellness. Does anyone have anything they need to say about school wellness? Terrific. Hey. Wonderful. Good deal. We got one. All right. And number A300, responsible use of technology and internet use policy. Anyone have anything on that one? Mrs. Mumford. And finally, nope, not finally. A325, communicable disease. Anyone have anything on? Okay. And A350, civility and decorum policy. Anyone have anything on that? Sweet. Okay, we've got two. So again, once we get to that moment in the meeting, I will bring those two forward for the final vote. We will put those into practice and move on with the discussion. So again, everybody is going to get two chances to talk about each policy. I'm going to go right down the table because I don't want to mess up anybody's names. So I need to get back to where I was. Sorry, my computer got weird. Okay, so the first one we are going to discuss, everybody is going to have two chances. Each chance will be 3 minutes long, is A100, non-discrimination and anti-harassment. Oh, you brought it up, so maybe I
Right.
should let you talk first.
Right.
And then the rest of the club. Okay, go ahead.
That might help the conversation.
No, that makes sense.
So in the previous or the existing policy on all of these, in our current setup, we added in parentheses, including gender status, sexual orientation, and gender identity as a further clarification. That is not legally required, but that is something that we made a decision to add to the policy in the last go-round to create a more welcoming and specific environment for our families and students and teachers. So I would propose adding that parenthetical description as well to this policy.
Okay, would that be consistent with the law?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Would that be consistent with our practice?
Actually consistent with current policy. I agree with Mrs. Witt.
Wonderful. Does anyone else have anything to say, starting with Daisha? Just yes or no?
On that topic that
Yes.
she brought up? No.
Okay, Mr. Wong.
That topic, I don't have anything.
Great.
But I have something else, yeah.
I know. Dr. Yin?
So I wonder, so we have a bully policy separated from this harassment. I wonder how they are related and
Of the bullying policy? The bullying policy is under a separate set of laws. For one thing, bullying is completely a state law concept, and it's only student to student, and it doesn't have anything to do with the protected class. Any student could be bullied for any reason. Versus this A100 policy covers really all of the federal discrimination and harassment laws.
okay, so bully is not a subcategory of this harassment.
No, it's a totally separate law and
Okay.
separate policy.
And the bully is only applied to students.
Students,
not
correct. And that may have
the
been in
staff
your previous
members.
policy. I don't know, but that's legally wrong. Legally, bullying is only student to student under Indiana law.
Okay, great, thank you. Mr. Shaw, do you have anything? Nothing? Okay, does, Mrs. Wood, do you have anything left? Okay. I think we're ready to move this one forward and discuss it. What we will do is draft the language for the change. So this one is going to go in the to change folder, and we're going to add gender identity.
So the specific language is including gender status, sexual orientation, and gender identity, and I will forward the email.
Beautiful, that's
I
perfect.
do have a question about gender status.
Okay,
That doesn't really have a legal definition. So that, I do have a concern about that from a perspective of how that is enforced and implemented, because I think you've covered it in the other items. Could you read the other items? again?
Sure, it's including gender status, sexual orientation, and gender identity.
Okay. Yeah, gender identity should cover anything in the gender realm. So,
I think the logic initially when adding that language is that students may not always have a clear understanding of their identity. And so that language was separate from their gender identity. Gender status means if they're unclear on that identity.
I get that, and I appreciate that, but one thing to share with you all, part of my role as your attorney is to help you make decisions that are gonna put the school in the least amount of legal risk. And the more you add a category that's undefined legally, the more you're at risk for violating your own policy. So simple is almost always better, simpler. So in this case, I would definitely recommend you just go with gender identity, because that would cover, that's a large.
That would
legal-
cover that, a
Yes.
large phrase. Okay.
Yeah, the concern you talk about or the scenario you talked about would be covered.
Okay,
great.
that works for me.
And the next step is we'll take your suggestion and we'll forward it to Amy. And we'll have a version of the policy with your change and a version of the policy without your change in April. And so we'll be able to choose yes or no on both of those, or also we'll vote on your
and-
change first.
Yeah, because I was going to say for
Yeah.
efficiency, make a motion on one, and then
Right.
if that goes through, you don't even have to spend the time on the second one.
Exactly. And then we'll have the both versions on the web, like we used to with the yellow and the red and the green.
Yeah.
Okay, super. Next one, nepotism, conflict of interest.
They have more issues on that.
Things on this one. I had
Oh.
misunderstood. I thought you were saying, did we have anything to say in regards to our first comment?
I'm sorry, go ahead. We'll get there. I've never done this before.
Yeah.
Okay. What is your issue on that?
So I actually have a couple. I don't know.
Let's do them one at a
One
time,
at a time.
otherwise I'm gonna get lost.
So the first one is on page 1, in regards to the Title IX and Title VI coordinators. I would like to see them be the assistant superintendent instead of the athletic director, assistant athletic director, and principal. As I reviewed really any school district I've looked at in all of the state of Indiana, I haven't found anywhere that someone uses their athletic director. They're all at a higher district level. Athletic directors are working directly with coaches and students right in the trenches. And I don't think they're the best option for being that coordinator. So I would like to see that changed to the assistant superintendent. And one of them in the future could be switched to the DEI or EE position we've talked about once that gets filled.
Okay, would that be consistent with the law?
Yes.
Great. Would that be consistent with practice?
We could absolutely work with that title.
Okay, is there a reason why we have chosen for it to be the athletic director?
I would need to defer to, thank you. I was going to say that was there in policy.
Rachel was there. Go ahead, Rachel.
The reason it's placed in the current location on the last policy review was to, A, move the supports and the investigation process a little bit closer to the student,
Okay.
help the students feel more comfortable. It was also placed there after we had an understanding of a male and a female athletic director, athletic director and assistant athletic director, to help there be some comfort and flexibility there in terms of whether a same-sex or opposite-sex gender conversation would be helpful.
Okay.
So it was really to allow for some balance between those two things. I don't specifically have an objection to moving it to those, but I do believe whenever we can bring a resolution closer to the student, the better off we are. So that was where that originated.
Okay. Mrs. Mumford, do you have anything else to say about that one?
Just, it's a valid point, but in experiences, I think it's frequently, there's things happening at the athletic level. So actually taking it to a higher level as a coordinator, I feel is more appropriate than in the trenches.
Dr. Greiner, can you clarify for me, is there anything that requires a student to talk to any particular person in this, or do they have the option to talk to?
No, when the question came up, we actually, Mrs. Roth and I talked about that and agreed that no, in any situation, if there's conflict, you would assign a different person. And that's why we're really indifferent to the,
Okay.
we're good with the board's desire on that one.
Okay. Mr. Wong, do you have anything else to say?
I think I understand Ms. Rachel's point close to the situation, but also I think they should make, even for me, I think that's better leave somebody far away from the situation so they can make kind of impartisan mediators kind of roles in the situation. So that's my opinion. Thank you.
Okay. If you wouldn't mind getting a little closer to your microphone, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Yeah, I'll close here.
No, I heard you, but just,
Yeah, in case, yeah.
Oh, that's
makes
so much
sense.
better. Thank
Yeah,
you.
Makes sense.
Rachel, do you have anything else you need to?
No, as I said, I mean, that's the history on it. I think, like Dr. Greiner, I feel like it could be acceptable either way. It might be helpful to play through what a scenario would look like. I think we're making an assumption here that most of these will come through the high school. I don't know if that's an accurate assumption or not, but that also could play into it as well.
Okay. Dr. Yin?
I think when we passed the last revision, I remember we had this passed the policy before, And at that time, I wonder whether we had a assistant superintendent at that time. Maybe we didn't
I
at
don't
that
remember.
time. And so sounds to me it makes sense to have somebody who are more distant from the school to play that role. Because, yeah.
Okay. Mr. Schott? Mr. Marley?
I don't have a problem. Anna has the time and the wherewithal to do it.
Okay. Anyone else have anything? Show of hands. Okay, do you have the language written for that change? Would you please forward it to me? Okay, and then I will add this, it's IX. Okay, and then Mr. Wong, was that also your,
Yeah, I have
Adjustment to
some
this.
separate issues.
you have a separate issue with
Yeah.
A100?
Yeah. So if you finish that, I can.
Yep, we're
You want
ready,
to-
go
I have
ahead.
others, but you can go ahead.
Okay, let's,
Oh, I have two issues.
sure.
One is, there's formal compliance form is found here. So I didn't see the link over there. So maybe we need add.
Yeah, that would be something you can add later.
Okay. So that will be separate form. We will
Yeah,
go
it
through
would be
that.
when you post it on your website, there'd be an ability to click and there'd be a link there.
But I didn't see that form yet. So
Yeah, because it's not posted on the website.
Is it a legal form that the state of Indiana requires?
I'm not sure the exact form we're talking about.
no, that's they say the formal complaint.
The formal complaint form,
Your complaint form is found here, and that's
you
what
need
they.
to have one for certain.
But
But there is not a state form, if that is the question, but there needs to be one.
Okay, I'm sure that there is one.
Yeah, and form approval is something that really is typically an administrative function that your administration already has one, and we have one that we recommend as well.
They will work closely with
Yeah.
you guys on that. So.
Okay, so there
Now,
will
is
be a
there-
form.
So
Is there a reason that as school board members, we can't see this form before this is all being
It's on
passed?
the
You
policy.
can see it. She's just saying you wouldn't formally approve it. So yeah, we'll show it to you.
That'd be great.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
We
I'm
can
not
even
trying
pick the notes
to
if you
lack
want.
its
No, I
transparency.
don't. I've never seen it, so I'd like to see it.
you're sent to us, take a look, because I didn't see that form yet.
We'll work with legal counsel to use theirs since they've got one.
I'll make a
Since they-
note.
Yeah, and then we will absolutely share that with the board.
Okay, so these will be separate form, nothing with this A to 100 policy. We can do that separately.
You won't have to do anything with it. You're just going to see it because you're requesting to see it. What Ms. Matthews is suggesting is that the board doesn't vote to approve a form. The board approves the policy. But we will share that with you.
So you can
Absolutely.
approve the
Yeah.
policy independently, yes.
Okay, got you. And can I have another issues?
Give me just a second. I
Okay.
was looking to see if that one is on our website, and I'm not seeing any hot links in our current
We can do that later.
policy, but that's where I would expect to find it. Okay, so that's satisfied. Okay, go ahead.
So Deja, go first, or I can say second issues. What's the procedures? I can finish first and.
Go ahead.
Okay. Another thing is regarding the non-discrimination based on genetic information of the employee. And I think we have this one in our existing policy, which is 3122.02. And I think probably we need to add on that the definition of genetic information, and also we need some sentence about protect genetic information of employees. I think that's under Title II. That's my understanding. Thank you.
Okay. So are you saying that what's in our current policy is not reflected in this policy?
Yes,
That we're,
yes.
okay. I know you didn't draft these, but do you have any information about genetic discrimination?
Well, your references, legal references at the end of this document cite all the various laws that are covered in this, and the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act, which is the source of that particular protected class for employees, is listed here so that a member of the public or anyone else could look that up and see the entire law. It's not anything that would be discretionary that you can choose what the definition is because it's based on a law. So you could certainly put something in, but it's not necessary in my opinion. And also another aspect is, knock on wood, in my many years of working with schools since this passed, I've had 0. I'm really jinxing. But, so it's one of the least applied or least high action legal areas in schools.
And it's incorporated by reference here.
Yeah, and it really only applies with your insurance anyway.
Okay.
Indirect, so it's not even directly things that we do, it's through the insurance aspect of things mainly.
Excellent. Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to suggest, Mr. Wong, if you're interested, you could go read that law. It is quite long, and I don't know that it would be helpful to put in here. It would unduly bulk up this policy, so I think that the reference makes a lot of sense.
And that is in there, right after the question,
Yeah,
there's all the legal records.
Looking at it right there.
Yeah, I know it's a long things, but I just, because the key things is protect employees' genetic information. So basically, that's called GINA, GINA, that's prohibit the employer to collect the genetic information from.
Correct.
I think that will be help us to protect our faculties, staff
Yeah,
members.
you're bound by, and it's built in here with
But-
the genetic information.
But from you legal's point of view, this very, very rare. This
Yes.
won't be, I mean, if we don't have this, from corporation point of view, the liability, legal liability.
Yeah, and adding the definition does not
Help
give you
much.
any extra protection because you're bound by the law and you've stated genetic information as a protected class and you've stated the reference to the law.
Okay, got you. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
And then I think that's okay.
You're good? Okay. Daisha, did you have another?
I did. So on page 1, under each of the coordinators, I wondered if we could include an email address. I think we find that this day and age, individuals appreciate emailing concerns. And like I said, as I was reviewing other school districts, this was frequently done to include an email address. Actually, I think in all of them that I found included an email address. So I was wondering if we could do that.
Would that be consistent with the
Yes,
law?
I would recommend though, that you make it a generic email that forwards to the person.
Okay.
Because if you put a name and then it changes and that
And we
person is gone,
forget.
you're now out of compliance in your policy.
Okay.
So I would recommend you make generic Title VI coordinator at blah, 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 Title IX coordinator, and make those emails. And of course, your tech folks can make it to where those flow to whoever is in that role at the time.
Okay, would that be consistent with our practice?
Yes.
Great.
That's fine.
Okay, I don't
We
have
were
a-
concerned, I think, name changes can change, and so that's why even
Yeah.
assistant superintendent as opposed to assistant
Yeah.
superintendent Roth, if she were.
Yes.
Yeah, so I like that. That's a
Okay.
great
Yeah,
solution.
just make generic email addresses, put the forwarding on, and you're good to go.
Great, thank you.
Is there anyone who disagrees with adding email for any reason? Okay, great. So what we'll do is that everything on this policy? No, okay. So far we've got 2 iterations we're gonna look at. We're gonna have a different person as the Title IX coordinator, and we're going to add orientation and gender identity. So on both of those changes, we'll also add the email down at the bottom, since it's uncontested. Go ahead.
Well, at the bottom of page 1, it says, in addition, each school building shall have a designated building level coordinator. Can we reference who that will be? And it doesn't even need to be by name, but so that we know, so the individuals know who that coordinator is.
Could we just do WLS Title IX, WLES Title IX, WLJSHS Title IX at blah, 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 and call those out too for the individual building level people? I think that would be the easiest solution. Would that be?
So help me understand, each school district, each building has a Title IX?
Yeah, and I'm
6?
saying rather than calling them out by name.
Right.
Just like with the others, we could have an email for each school, and then Mr. Hamilton could route it to the
Yeah,
correct person.
and that's a good route because the reason why it's not listed in the same way is because your building level coordinators may change by titles over time.
Right.
A lot of times in schools you get where maybe you have deans for a while, maybe you have assistant principals for a while, but then those titles change more frequently. And so that's why the titles aren't there, but having the email again for that forwarding would be a fine way to deal with that.
And how would we know who that person is?
I don't think we would. That's more of an administrative issue. I think we'd just leave it to our building administration to assign
Yes, and they
someone
can
to that.
keep a log of it or have that as an administrative guideline even.
Or you could email them and say, do you have red hair? Do you have brown hair? Narrow it down. Rachel, did you have something? I know, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to point out to everybody that we just added 7 email addresses to generic entities. And at some point, we might want to ask our superintendent how many generic email addresses we would want to have and what would be purposeful. I don't have strong opinions that 7 is too many, but if this is a device that we're going to employ, we might want to just consider that.
Does principal@WLIS yada yada work? Is that an email that we currently use? No?
The thing to think about, maybe type in two-step verification. It will need to be updated manually, so there will be that evolving from. Not a huge deal, but
Yeah, we're talking about 2-step authentication on 7 different emails.
That's a lot of
If this
email.
operates this way, and we're just on one policy, there are other policies as we go along that have contact points. So, I mean, we are a relatively small school corporation.
Right, we don't
We're
need to
making a
add
rather large
that.
bureaucratic bubble, or that we're planting the seed of one right now. So I just want to point
Yeah,
that out.
for precedential kind of thought, know that this policy, and there's maybe 2 others that are really legally heavy. Child abuse reporting is another one, but that doesn't have a particular person attached to it. So you probably aren't going to have a large number of policies that would have the urgency to have an email address. And if the person changed, it's simple to call them. It's not a matter of it being immediate. So in that regard of future policies, I don't have too many concerns thinking through all the future that you're going to do, because this one is relatively unique because it has all the very serious reporting obligations behind it and very immediate. Bullying is another one.
And I kind of feel like if we had our DEI individual and Mrs. Roth monitoring all of those emails or many of those emails, that would then route to the correct person. That might be a way around it. We'll have to figure that out.
Yeah, again, I don't have a problem with these 7. I just want to say we
don't want
planted
7 per-
7, and we're going to put through more policies.
Yeah, I would
and-
not recommend it except for the ones where you really have
Yeah.
an immediacy to that contact.
Maybe we'll get a TikTok. Okay. Did you have anything else on that one, Mrs. Mumford?
Yes, I had one more. On page 3, it talks about that first or the second paragraph, sexual conduct relationships with students. And I wasn't clear why it was in this section and not at the end, because at the top it says for reports, complaints other than student sexual harassment.
Because that would not be by a student. In that case, it would be perpetrator, would be the alleged harasser would be an adult, not a student. That's why it's in that section, but you can move it to wherever as long as it appears in the policy.
So student sexual harassment, you're saying it goes here because even though a student is being sexually harassed, they're being harassed by an adult, is why it was put here.
That's why it was put there, but I see your point, and if it's the desire of the board to move it, that's just fine.
I just wondered if there'd be some confusion, but I didn't know. So that I wondered, and then I actually wondered about 2 spots of wording. So that, let's see, the first sentence, it says any adult who engages in certain sexual conduct. I wondered if we could remove that word certain.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
It
I can't
seemed-
think of any sexual conduct that would not be covered, if that's the question.
I wouldn't be certain.
Yeah.
And then
That's
the
fine.
other word would be in the next sentence.
We probably pulled that from a regulation somewhere where they were imprecise language, but that's okay, because you're going to be more inclusive rather than less.
And then at the end of that sentence, it says may also be in violation of crimes. And I actually think it would sound better to say in violation of law.
I looked that up, and that's
Instead of
actually a
crime.
legal phrase that's used, violation of crime.
It's very awkward.
I had
but
not
yeah,
heard that before.
Yeah, we did not make
Okay.
that up.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a weird one, but,
Yeah,
and
I
it
mean,
sounded weird to me.
Yeah, it is. But you certainly could say, or a violation of criminal law if you wanted to.
Yeah, I say we've got enough changes. Can we just leave it since it's?
Well, I would say, why did we have two of us that bothered? Why not fix it while we're fixing words?
I mean, I suppose, except I don't want to get too bogged down in the changes to the point where we don't have any changes made. Does anyone object to changing it to violation of the law?
I think it needs to say criminal law. It's
Criminal law?
specifically is a crime that we're
Okay.
dealing with in this.
Violation of criminal law, is that acceptable?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I'll put that in both iterations instead of crimes. Okay. Are we good? Yes, Dr. Yin.
So I'm not sure whether we got conclusion on the contact person. I wonder, can we just replace the building level, what's a kind of leader or something, into principal? So, and then make it more specific.
The principal is the one under Title VI for Willis.
So in the several places, it's called, the people need to report to the building level leader. And so then we talk about the different emails, and can we just use principal in general? Then everybody knows who the principal is.
The reason why building leader is in there is for times when the principal may not be available. These are all immediate report kind of policies. So, I mean, you could say to a building administrator if you wanted to, but I wouldn't want you to limit it just to the principal, because then the question becomes, what happens if the principal is not in the building that day? Yes.
Some of what we've used in the past and our current policy is the principal or their designee.
Okay.
Is another way to phrase that, so the principal can designate people on their team to coordinate.
As long as that's communicated, the only concern I'd have about that is not,
Who's the designee?
yeah,
Yes.
is to know who's the designee. So if you open it up to, on this policy, on a lot of policies, that works great.
Yeah.
But on this one where we're talking about immediate reporting, I would make it as obvious as possible who the folks are, so that you don't have anyone coming back later and saying the policy was not clear about to whom we could go.
Okay. Okay, so we got a little work to do. You're going to see 3 versions of this month. It'll be the one that includes someone else as the Title IX coordinator, and the one that includes the orientation and gender identity language, and also this original one with the changes we discussed, like the emails and the crimes and so on. Okay, so it's going to be a little bit confusing, and you're going to be voting on, shoot, there's going to have to be a 4th one too. We'll figure it out. I haven't gotten that far yet. Let's just get this.
And
Well,
why there's
because
3?
if people like your edit, but they don't like mine, then we're going to have a version that's got your edits, a version that's got my edits, and a version that's got no edits for everybody to vote on. And then we'll maybe we need to keep iterating until we get to either or.
Was there any disagreement on so far, everything that everybody said, or could it just be the revised version?
We have to vote to amend the meeting? We would have. When we did it as a policy committee, we just had the conversation.
But you're doing that right here.
Finish one. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, this is probably one of the most complex ones that we're going to approach. And so if you had multiple versions of this one, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have multiple versions of the
All of it.
whistleblower or whatever.
Okay.
So this one might just be more versions.
But what, I just guess I didn't understand, where was their disagreement? I thought I heard everybody agreeing that they could live with the suggestions that everybody's made. Why
Can
couldn't
everybody
that
live
just
with
be?
all of those? Because I can just write it up as
all of them.
all of the changes, and we'll talk about it again. Is that?
We also could use the format that in previous review, we'd have option A or option B.
And then vote.
And so you could vote on option A or option B, and then you just do a strike through and you're finished.
Okay,
That,
Yeah.
And that could be another way that you could do it.
okay. So we'll be voting this or that rather than yes or no. Okay, we'll get there. We'll figure that out.
Yeah, and that's a very good point, Mrs. Witt, about this is one of the most complex, heaviest policies you will deal with. That's why we put an A100, because it's really, really important.
Okay, thank you very much. That's a lot of things. Okay, who had the issue with A125?
sorry, what's the name of it?
Nepotism. Daisha, what was your?
So I actually have several questions on page 1. It says school board member or employee knowingly, sorry, let me find that.
Where are you?
That's what I was gonna say, let me.
Oh, at the bottom under
The
conflict of
very
interest.
bottom on page 1. Says conflict of interest occurs when a school board member or employee knowingly or intentionally may benefit financially from a contract with the corporation or a purchase made by the corporation. I did not know if this, if this prohibits board members from accepting political contributions from school contractors, or if it has anything to do with that. Whichever way it goes, it seems like it's some gray area. And so I would like to clarify either, yes, they can accept political, or no, they cannot.
And it may be that they can as long as they don't know it's a school contractor, because I certainly don't know everybody we do business with.
Well, I
get
think
to-
an important clarification needs to be made here. Legally, if there's a conflict of interest, that doesn't necessarily mean that what's going on is prohibited. It means it needs to be disclosed.
Okay,
So anything that falls under that category, that there's a potential benefit, needs to be disclosed. And it is
disclosed to the school or disclosed?
disclosed publicly in a form.
In
There's a state form, and it's our recommendation as best practice that sometime through the year, typically most schools do it at board reorganization time, that at that January board reorganization meeting, you redo annually your conflict of interest disclosure forms, where everyone on the board would disclose if they have received anything. And that doesn't prohibit you from having those contributions or owning a business or whatever the case may be, but it's part of the open door law kind of concepts.
Right.
And transparency that it be out there.
And political candidates also disclose their contributions on the
So it's
finance
very similar
forms.
to that. It's a
So-
disclosure aspect.
Okay,
So can we add an additional sentence regarding that, and also add that in January during the reorganizational meeting, we'll do that form?
I would not recommend you add that, because then you're
Okay.
limiting yourself.
Okay.
I would just have you put it on your January stuff as your practice, but if for some reason that is changed, like it used to be reorganization meetings could be in July.
Okay.
If the legislature changes that law, now you're out of compliance. So I would not want you to put that in your policy. I would just have you do that as your practice. And then as to the explaining what that is one of many, many conflicts. So I'd be a little concerned about bringing that potential conflict out without you've opened the door to needing to have a long list of things. So in conflict of interest is a legal concept. It's not a discretionary. So all of those statutes that are at the end go through the various aspects, and also the state organization that oversees that. I can't remember which state agency it is. It's on the form that you fill out. But that agency's website also has all kinds of information about what constitutes a conflict of interest. So I would say this is also information that's not necessary because it's covered in other ways.
So how is it, I mean, I've never seen this done in our school district, a conflict of interest form completed
I don't think we have.
in the several years I've followed it, or, any of these things. So how do we follow through and make sure that we are abiding by what we need to do?
I was just going to suggest, since Ms. Matthews suggested that we not put it in the policy, that we make note now to Roberta. Roberta can work with our attorney to get it as part of the process, because she gets all that together for us, and that can address
Yeah,
it.
and you usually, every school that I work with has kind of a template for their reorganization every year. And so the key piece is that it gets on the template. It's very, very likely to stay there once it's on there, because you just do the same thing every year. Unless
Yeah, once she's got it in there as a procedure,
Yeah.
unless you as a board decides not to
change
do
to
that,
it, it's
then
gonna stay.
she's automatically going to bring
Yes.
that before the president.
yes, Rachel.
And that's why we ask that it be done in the reorg, because it's so structured.
I would actually appreciate that being added, as somebody who's seen a lot of kind of mudslinging about conflict of interests and been falsely accused of things that I've had no part in doing. I love the opportunity to state facts and have those be clearly visible, because I think our community would be made better by that.
I agree.
Do you have a sample form? We did that in our previous district, but if you've got a sample
the
form.
form?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a state form. I can send
Excellent.
it to you.
Okay.
Yes, that's it.
Great. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, we didn't make the form, the state made it, and they recommend it, and it really should be filled out by anybody with elected office in Indiana.
Okay.
Is that the 236, Form 236?
I don't know, she hasn't pulled up, what's the number on it? The form number?
Form disclosure statement, state form 54266, parentheses R2/6-15, form 236 SBOA.
So there was 236 at the end of it, yeah.
I think you could probably find it easily if you go to State Board of Accounts
Yes.
website.
Correct.
Okay.
So yeah, it's State Board of Accounts that administers it. I couldn't remember if it was State Board of Accounts or if it was through one of the
I
others.
think that's the form, state form of accounting, right? State
I can't
form.
hear you, Lawrence,
Yeah,
sorry.
it's a
I
state
think
board.
that's the form is from the,
State Board of Accounts.
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah,
Yes, it
that's,
is.
yeah, that's, yeah. Okay,
Thank you,
that-
ladies.
Yeah, okay, go ahead, yeah.
I wanted to let our audience know that Mrs. Julian's going to be putting out the sign-up sheet for speaking at 5:45, which is coming up quick. And wherever we get to with these is where we're going to stop at 5:55, and we're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back at 6 for the real meeting, yes.
I feel like you're going to shoot me for this, but we were supposed to allow public comment at our work session start too.
It didn't say when. Do we need to do that? Does anyone have anything they want to comment at the work session? Okay, we did.
Sorry, meeting
Nope,
held in
you're
public.
good.
We have to do that.
Yep, we did. We just did it way out of order.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Thank you for keeping me on the straight and narrow. Okay, what else have we got on A125?
Page 2, the top paragraph says, any employee who has reason to believe that he or she may have a conflict of interest is required to disclose the potential conflict. Can we add to the employer's employee supervisor? I mean, right now it's just open who they disclose it to.
I think it would be on the form, wouldn't it?
Yeah, or you can choose, that's a good idea. You can have it be to the supervisor, or you might want to really have it be to central office. Because a lot of supervisors, particularly if you think about somebody who's in child nutrition or something, the child nutrition director isn't necessarily going to know all these and know what that even is sometimes. So,
In my experience, you can jump in, Sean, we would send it out about 2 months in advance of when we took them to be accepted at the board meeting. We would send them out to all employees and board members. And basically anybody who would have a conflict of interest would fill that out. And then send that in, and then we would accept the conflict of interest statements at the board.
so that probably is already going through your office, it sounds like, central office.
In my previous district.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Okay.
So is to central office a good way to word that? where
We'll
it needs
figure
to
that
go
out.
to?
Don't worry about it. We'll make sure.
Concept can get in there.
Yeah, we'll get that in there and represent it. This one is going to come back in April. Because we'll also need to put the form number on there as well, so that people can locate it for themselves. Anything else? Okay.
Yeah, but you,
Dr. Ian?
Dr. Ian, go ahead. Go ahead.
And so on page 1, then relative is defined as the 14 categories.
Yep.
And so their spouse repeatedly mentioned. But I wonder, how about boyfriend, girlfriend, significant others?
This list is based on what is in the various statutes. You can go beyond that. The challenge becomes defining those. They're much less easily defined than the 14 that are here. But is it legally permissible? Yes. Some schools have language that says something like member of their household. You can do that, but these are just based on the ones that are in the law.
Is that satisfactory?
Boyfriend, something involved in those conflict of interest?
I don't
So-
remember the news, but okay. Would anyone object to adding member of their household to this list? So it would include a parent of the employee or a parent of a member of the employee's household, for example. Would that be acceptable rather than spouse? Doesn't look like anyone's having a strong feeling. Daisha, you have
I was trying
eyebrows?
to process it.
It feels a little
Okay.
extra to me, but I don't.
Oh, there's our put out the list alarm. Okay. Do you have an opinion either way at CCHA about that?
Well, we definitely would prefer household to the boyfriend or girlfriend only because of, again, that defining and figuring out what that actually means. You can look at residency and have a clear line of whether there's a household or not.
Okay.
Whether or not you do household is really up to you, discretionary.
Do these conflicts of interest come up a lot in your practice as far as like the food service coordinators, boyfriends, aunts, grandmother worked for Cisco?
Occasionally. And I'll tell you, it depends on community to community. So this really is something that you all know your community better than I do to know how often it's likely to come up here. Because some places it hardly ever comes up, and especially the larger the town, the less likely it is an issue.
Right.
It's-
And this is a very small town.
Yeah, so that's something to consider. You know your community, and if you think it's necessary, you all certainly have the authority to act.
Okay, well, we'll consult with, and get a draft of that for April with it both ways, and then we'll talk about it in the meeting. Anything else on that one? Yep.
I had questions in regards to teacher gifts. On page 2, it says employees, officers, and agents of the board. Is that referring to staff and teachers? Or, because later in the policy, it brings up if a staff member.
Well, if a staff member, I believe I'll find it, is more about receiving of gifts. Here, it's about not soliciting, so not reaching out and trying to get gifts or asking for gifts. And then the next one is expecting or accepting gifts for carrying out the duties of his or her position. That's a little different than where there's, if a staff member has provided an amount of extra help and would like to express appreciation. It's really more of a matter of degrees and de minimis today. Something that's a small token of appreciation is different than something that's almost given as an incentive of do more than or do outside of what's normally expected.
So this part that says should not accept or expect or accept gifts for carrying out the duties, that's more about kind of briberies
Yes.
and incentives.
correct.
It has nothing to do with them receiving gifts.
Well, I mean, a larger gift could be considered a bribe, but here where it talks about extra help for a student, if a family brings in and gives them a little figurine or something that says thank you with an apple on it, that's probably not akin to a bribe. So is there some gray area in this? Yes, but you're not going to ever get to the point with language unless you absolutely say nobody can ever get a gift, and that's going to be impossible to enforce.
Well, I am concerned with the paragraph that says if a staff member has provided an unusual amount of extra help, the family would like to express appreciation, small non-monetary gifts may be accepted. There's a tradition in our school district of giving gift cards and other things to staff where this is saying that's not accepted.
Those go through parent council, and I think that's different
Yeah, the
legally.
next paragraph covers that usually, especially if it's holiday. The board acknowledges that gift giving to staff members as part of holiday celebration is in keeping with the spirit of such celebration, and gift giving at the close of an academic year is traditional. So if they're giving it as a end of year thank you or a
teacher
holiday thank you,
appreciation.
teacher appreciation, those are covered in that paragraph.
But what about parents? I mean, there's quite a few gifts that are given directly from students or parents to teachers that don't go through parent council.
Yeah, that's that second.
Okay, I
That
thought-
would still be covered of that second. Like my daughter, especially in elementary, you give something to the teacher at the holiday. You often give something to teacher at the end of the year. That's the second to last paragraph.
Okay, but it says no money. I mean, I'm not clear why we're adding.
Gift
why we're
cards
putting
and
this
money
in
are
here.
seen as different under the
Correct.
law. We're
Yeah.
allowed to give gift cards to our employees, for example, but we're not allowed to give cash bonuses unless they run through the payroll system and are taxed. So,
I'm talking about gifts, like if a parent were to give a teacher some cash for doing something as a gift instead of a gift card. Why are we not wanting to allow that is my question.
Because that is considered different than a gift, and it is more akin to a bribe regardless of the amount.
I don't think it would be a good idea for parents to hand our teachers cash as a means of saying thank you to
I
them.
don't think it'd be a good idea for our staff to accept it.
Yeah.
I think it becomes questionable at that point.
Okay.
Cash should be handed from parents to teachers.
Look, as a teacher, I was offered cash and I was like, I can't accept that, thank you.
Okay.
Some little kiddo gives you all their lunch money and says, thanks.
I did get left a half bottle of cologne once though.
When my mom was teaching, she got an industrial size roll of tinfoil from one of her adult students that they, from their work. We used it for years. Anyway,
There might be some culture difference.
Sure.
In Chinese culture, for example, people give red pocket as gift.
red money.
Red pocket, cash in red pocket as good luck sign. So I personally don't do that here, but if some parents do, I won't feel that's a bribery for teachers. So
Right.
it's just a
definitely
sincere thank you.
Cultural difference for sure. And I'm sure our teachers are used to that and sensitive to it. And if it were an amount that raised any red flags, they would probably come forward with that and talk to their building supervisor. Is that, I don't think we have rampant cash moving around between our students and our teachers, is what I'm saying.
I guess I'm just trying to understand why we're adding this to our policy that parents can't give any money to teachers. I've never been aware of that in the past. But, so I didn't know why we're trying to restrict it, but.
I guess in this case, maybe other than money can be deleted for this circumstance. The gift season, holiday season, and the teachers to receive that gift. We don't need to specify what gift.
What do you
And
think?
to answer your question from legal perspective, as Mrs. Austin said, cash is looked at differently, and there's an aspect that no public employee is supposed to accept any compensation beyond their salary. So I highly recommend, for protection of your employees, that language not be changed.
Okay, thank you. So it is 5:52. Is that it on A125?
There's two others that came up on previous policies that I wanted to clarify. So our previous policy prohibited teachers from charging a fee for private lessons, but now it's not in it. So I didn't know what is our school district policy. I actually don't have a thing.
Go ahead, Rachel.
There was an adjustment to that, an exception for teachers who do tutoring, or specifically with music lessons that came up.
Okay.
Because there is a shortage of available people to provide private music instruction. And so those were exceptions made to that policy historically.
Okay.
And I can tell you why the language was proposed. It's because it's darn near impossible to enforce, and it's not a legal requirement, is number two. And then number three and this is not a legal issue, but a practical issue. I'll give you a lot of the practical because I work with schools all over the state. There's a huge shortage in all positions, and if we can do anything that helps morale by allowing them to still do that. But I go back to the biggest point is point one, that's incredibly hard to enforce. And even your rule followers are probably doing that because that's really broad. It can be not just the tutoring, but if they're in youth sports and they do, batting coaching, or that would be considered that too. Or if they are giving, they do science stuff and they're doing some sort of an event on the side. So it's kind of a rabbit hole to go down, I'll tell you that.
No, I think this is great. I just wanted to make sure. I
It was
wonder why we had
deliberate.
changed it.
Yeah.
But this is great. And then the last one that comes up in policy 1130 is it says it prohibits corporation employees from the sale of information about students and other corporation records. And I'm not sure why that was put in a previous policy and if it needs to be in a current one.
So you're talking about language that was in a previous policy?
That
And I
didn't get brought
would say
over.
that's prohibited by many, many laws, and you don't need to say it in policy. That's why we
That was what I was going to say. That language exists in policies throughout, that you may not sell information, student names, any of that type of thing.
the
It's in
law.
policies as we continue to read through policies, it's all over the place. So,
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying.
Sure, happy
Thanks.
to.
So it's 5:55. I've put all of the ones we didn't get to in the not discussed folder. Those will come back to you in April. It is my intention to limit us to 20 policies at a time, because otherwise it's going to be 1 million policies. So until we get a certain number passed, we're not going to have you guys first reading anymore.
We'll just suspend and just let us know when you're ready.
Perfect. So we're going to take a 5-minute break before our actual meeting, and I'll see you back here. We're adjourned. All right, folks, I'm going to call to order the March 4th meeting of the School Board of Trustees for the West Lafayette Community School Corporation. You'll notice I have asked for some new decoration. I felt like this room could use a little life, and there's symbolism. Next month we'll have doves. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Schreiner for our special recognitions.
Okay.
When you're ready.
Yeah, well, I'm almost ready, but I'll get readier as we go. I just wanted to, this is our month to do some shining for the junior, senior high school, which we do several times a year. And I always try to look for kind of groups you don't hear about or kids that you don't see as much or are not as obvious as some of the other organizations and clubs we have. And we have literally dozens of clubs at the junior, senior high school. Everybody's in a club, not quite, but almost. And a lot of these kids you'll meet tonight are in multiple clubs. So really, this is a sampling. I sent an email out to some of our great sponsors to ask for kids that jump to the front of their mind, who deserve some recognition for what they do for their work and their service to others. And while being part of a club now has been part of graduation requirements in Indiana for several years, you know, these kids aren't doing it for that. I don't think they are. Maybe they are. And they're not doing it for resumes. I think they do it because they really enjoy it. And it's a big part of our junior, senior high life is the clubs that we're really proud to kind of showcase some of these guys tonight. And I didn't realize we'd have so many we have 4 different clubs we're going to recognize just from each. And we're going to start with, I think we're starting with Mrs. Boyd. And did I give you those or not? Okay. You should have 3. Okay, and I'll let you take it from there. And then as everybody comes up, we're going to take pictures, so stay here until we do. I think we have 10 people.
Perfect.
So start.
Good evening. I have the pleasure of speaking tonight on behalf of GSA, or Gay Straight Alliance. The young people that we're going to introduce tonight have dedicated themselves to doing some really hard work. Some work that really shouldn't be expected of them until they're much older, but yet these guys have really stepped out of their comfort zone to reach out and be an inclusive leader in all ways throughout our building. Let's see, we'll start with, I think Cameron, you're up first. Cameron? So Cameron, I have had the pleasure of knowing for a couple of years now, and even when he wasn't involved with GSA, he was certainly a leader among his peers. This young person works almost full-time, is that right? More than full-time? Part-time, okay, he works part-time, but in a very significant role in training adults. He also at school is a student teacher cadet, so he's working over at Willis every day. He's also a leader in our GSA. He's an executive board member and really reaches out to kids and just brings a sense of warm, welcoming, and really does a great job with even our little 7th and 8th graders. He does a really nice job with. So this is Cameron. You're welcome. Next, we have Emerson. I had Emerson as a student in the 7th grade, and I couldn't be more proud of the growth and all of the maturity that Emerson shows every day. She is currently our president of our club as a freshman, and that's really quite something to be proud of. She has served as a page at the State House, and she's also creates an environment that provides fun and significant activities for our kids to get involved, not just within the classroom, but also outside of the classroom. She's busy allowing students to have voices that maybe wouldn't have had them otherwise. So I'm very, very proud of Emerson as well. Lastly, I have Ren Yother. I don't believe Ren's here today. Oh, Ren is here. Oh, I love it. That was a great surprise for me. So Ren is our 3rd executive, and she serves in many roles, including media specialist, as far as she's really in charge of our media and publicity. She also does a really great job of welcoming in some of those other younger students as well. And I should note, also a freshman, right? Also a freshman. So very, very proud of these 3 young folks.
Thanks, Mrs. Boyd. And Next, we'll have Ms. Hipsher to talk about Environmental Consciousness Organization. There's two for you. Yeah, I was going to do one group. Do you want to get separate?
Well, they're just standing there awkwardly.
Well, I picked on that for that reason. So we usually have Margaret down there. Well, there.
I'm Andy Hipsher. I'm our Eco Club sponsor. Eco Club is exactly what it sounds like. We're in charge of making things green in the best way. I would like to recognize my two co-presidents this evening. Only one of them could make it. The other is homesick. So Jessica, if you'll come on up here. Jessica is our co-president this year. She's a senior. She's going to be graduating and leaving some very big shoes to fill. She's worn lots of hats with Eco Club over the years. I wrote some things down so I wouldn't forget to say them. I would say some of her biggest accomplishments would be organizing and maintaining the recycling efforts at our school, planting a pollinator garden, even though it was somewhat ill-fated, and partnering with TerraCycle this year to collect used pens, pencils, mechanical pencils, markers, highlighters, not just from our building, but from all 3 buildings. So everybody's helping out in this big project to make sure that those things don't end up in landfills, which is great. And like I said, she's going to be leaving some big shoes to fill. So thank you, Jessica, for being our fearless co-president. And Ashley is the other co-president who couldn't make it tonight, so I'll hang on to this for her.
I don't know, Mrs. Forbes, I'm putting you on the spot. You want me to do the talk? Jump on up here then. 'Cause you know what? It'll sound better even though you gave me the words. And these are.
You have 3 and 4. I have 3 or 4, sir.
These 3. Rahul,
Okay.
Natalie, and Mary Grace.
Right.
Yeah.
So you gave me 4.
I did?
I'm an English teacher, but
Oh,
I think
well.
this is for.
We'll figure it out later.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Mary Del Forbes, and I am the sponsor of the Students Demand Action Club. If you haven't heard of that club before, it's because it is relatively new. It was just approved by you last year. The president of the club, you might recognize her name. It's Mary Grace Austin. And she is the first person that we would like to recognize. The club actually advocates for common sense gun legislation and firearms safety. These are the students who want to create awareness and would like to, keep it in everybody's mind that, safety drills and lockdowns and all of that should not be the new normal, that school shootings should not be passe in the news, and they advocate every single day for awareness on that. So just in 1 year, Mary Grace, we've had a voter registration drive at school. We have had letters written to our legislators, and just recently a school resource officer spoke during the high school lunches to talk about gun safety and safe storage and so on and so forth. So this is just in 1 short year, and I'm just so impressed with all of your efforts. The second person I'd like to recognize is Rahul Durai. Am I pronouncing your name correctly, by the way? Good. He is also a senior like Mary Grace, and I call him the mover and shaker of the school. He is the guy who knows all about the legislation going through the State House, and he sat in with us one time and filled us in on legislation specific to firearms. I swear that all 3 of these students have clones walking around school. You're doing a multitude of many wonderful things, and I just thank you for your advocacy and leadership. And then our third person is Natalie David. Natalie is one of those that, is constantly on the move. Speaking of visionary, Natalie's a person who not only can identify a problem, but actually works to do something about it. In addition to being a part of Students Demand Action, Natalie came up to me once and she said, "We have too much food waste in this school. We need to do something." And then she does something about it. Many other things, was running track Saturday, heck of a poet, by the way, so I could go on all night, but instead I'll give you your certificate. So thank you very much.
Okay, and Anna? It's Anna. Okay, that's the other one. Okay. Yeah, that was my bad. And I want to speak, our final club representatives we want to mention tonight are from National Honor Society. And we're going to start with Grace Reynolds. Actually, I'm going to read some remarks from Mrs. Helton. So Grace, B. Cabot, Annalise, if you'd all like to come up. And we'll just talk about everybody at the same time. So Mrs. Helton is a longtime sponsor of National Honor Society, and that's a program we're very proud of at our school for over many, many years. And the faculty at our school have wishes to honor Grace Reynolds, B. Cabot, Annalise Stolars with National Honor Society membership for their outstanding scholarship, leadership, service, and character. Those are the qualities of National Honor Society that these young women have been honored with. And their fellow members this fall elected them, or last spring, I think. Yeah, last spring elected them as this year's executive board. And through these officers' contributions of time and labor, the school tutoring program benefits many students. As president, Grace conducts meetings, makes the tutee matches, maintains spreadsheets of tutoring assignments and collects tutor hours, and facilitates communication between tutors, tutees, parents, teachers, counselors, and Mrs. Helton. As secretary, Annalise has the responsibilities of supplying tutor request forms and of advertising the program through flyers and various digital school announcements to get kids to come in and enjoy that service. All three officers cooperate to complete all of the tasks necessary, and all three conducted a special end of semester review session in December, which I didn't know you guys did, which is great. Before final exams, they did a review session for anybody who wanted to come, I believe. In addition to assisting with these duties as vice president, Bee has the distinction of being the member with the most hours tutoring so far this year. Recently, she has been tutoring a freshman in honors bio before school and a junior in algebra 2 during 8th period study hall. And where were you? Where were you when I needed you? Actually, I needed you well before algebra 2. Mrs. Helton just wants to say that she's very proud of the National Honor Society Executive Board, and this particular group has been extraordinarily reliable. These three young women truly deserve recognition for their service to their school and community. So congratulations.
Here, since Mrs. Pizarros isn't here, could I talk you into taking the picture? Would that be all right? Yeah, would you, Randy? Or, okay. Mrs. Delaney's hiding over there.
You were going to get called.
Yeah, you might need to make 2 rows. There's just so much great stuff going on at this high school. We can't fit it all in one picture. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
One more comment. I didn't ask all of the various sponsors to be here tonight because they're busy people, and I'm really thrilled that they're here. But I do want to say, for those dozens of clubs that we have at our school, they need dozens of sponsors. Well, but just like the kids, we do have sponsors who do multiple clubs. So most of these are done gratis and on their own time, and they do it for satisfaction like the kids do as well. So I want to just thank all of the teacher sponsors for everything they do to help our kids enjoy these clubs and organizations. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And you all are free to stay if you would like to, but we very much understand if you have other things to do this evening. So thanks for coming. See you at home. All right. So our next item is communication from the audience, and the first person signed up this evening is Becky Creech. I'll remind everybody you have 3 minutes, and Mr. Schott will keep the time for us. Thank you.
My name is Becky Creech, and I'm a science teacher at the high school. I'm also a West Lafayette community member who, since the last school board meeting, has been stopped by many people in the area asking me questions about the West Lafayette schools. I'm here tonight to help educate the community about the role of the school board. In preparation, I listened to the Schools In podcast hosted by the Dean of the Stanford Graduate School of Education, Dan Schwartz. In the episode titled The Job of a School Superintendent, Dean Schwartz spoke with Eric Burmeister, a Stanford alum who is a superintendent in California. Mr. Burmeister outlined the hierarchy within a school district. The only employee of the school board is the superintendent. All others are employed by the school district. Therefore, the most important job of the superintendent is to hire the best educators available. Bringing this back to West Lafayette, the school board hired Dr. Greiner to be our superintendent. It was then Dr. Greiner's job, not the school board's, to hire the best administrators for our school. He had an opportunity to make his first West Lafayette principal hire when the Wellis principal resigned. Dr. Greiner developed a process that ultimately led to the hiring of Mrs. Delaney. When Mr. Schreiner announced his retirement, we were fortunate to have Dr. Greiner's experience in developing effective processes to hire quality principals. Since no board members questioned the process used to hire Mrs. Delaney, Dr. Greiner could model the high school principal hiring process after that one. As Mr. Marley stated at the February board meeting, this is Dr. Greiner's hire. It's his hire because it's his job to hire our school administrators. That is not the job of the school board. What is the job of the school board? Dean Schwartz states that the job of the school board is to set policies that will help guide the district. Once those policies are set, it is the job of the educational professionals to work within those guidelines. That work is best achieved when the professionals are allowed to do their jobs without constantly being micromanaged. Therefore, in West Lafayette, the board should not micromanage the superintendent should not micromanage the principals should not micromanage the teachers should not micromanage the students. In fact, our students work and learn best when they are allowed space to think on their own, make mistakes, learn from those mistakes, and grow as people. All of the professionals in our school should be afforded the same growth-minded environment. Finally, Dean Schwartz and Mr. Burmeister discussed what makes an effective school board member. The best school board members understand the line of governance, and they do not overstep the line. They are community-minded individuals who understand the public benefit of public schools. They are interested in establishing school policy that will help all students. On the other hand, school board members who are only focused on their 1 to 2 pet issues or things that angered them in the past do not have the best interests of all students in mind. These types of board members create political drama that can undermine the positive things that are happening in our classrooms and schools. I urge our West Lafayette school board members to consider what kind of board member you are and then strive to be better for our students, teachers, administrators, and schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Creech. Next up, we have Jonathan Eifler.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Eifler. I've taught in the greater Lafayette area for 22 years, the last 7 years at our high school. Beyond teaching in my time at West Lafayette, I've been part of some exceptional educational experiences and opportunities where the utmost professionalism was their foundation. I attended the last school board meeting and looking forward to finding out who my next principal would be. An acquaintance of mine who was potentially applying for a teaching position at the high school watched online. After explanations of the no votes, which prevailed in opposition to the process, they texted me and asked, why would anyone want that job? This is the impact we are having on our corporation. We are in a time when new education professionals are hard to find. New candidates apply for a position. They will be interviewing us as much as we are interviewing them. If they do not feel that this is the place that is best fit for them, nor that their professionalism will be represented, they will say no. When I applied at our high school, I said yes because our science department, our administrative team, our superintendent, and our school board at the time showed me that West Lafayette was a respected place to be a professional. Now I'm compelled to remind those on this school board of the importance and understanding that there are standards for your actions, words, collaboration, and most of all, professionalism. I hope that everyone on this board is holding themselves accountable to the set of standards presented and discussed by the Indiana School Board Association. You do not get a choice in the dispositions you demonstrate and the methods you use. Those are set forth for you by the ISBA. Just like the standards and dispositions for teachers and principals are set forth by the Department of Education. Dr. Robert Swally, president of the ISBA in 2021, authored an article that discussed the differences between effective and ineffective school board members. He writes that ineffective members who want to shake things up don't have the patience or persistence to learn the job, pay the dues, and become effective in their roles. In his article, he lays out a very clear and concise expectation for the role of a school board within its corporation. We hire a superintendent to handle those things, and that professional hires other highly qualified people to delegate specific tasks. If we try to tell those folks what to do, it's demoralizing and detrimental to the overall mission of the school system, educating our children. I know you've heard this all before. I'm asking that each of you reflect on your efforts on this board. Not only think about the things that you have said or done or written in a newsletter in which you tell yourself I'm doing the right thing because I decided it was right for those in my echo chamber. Actually do the right thing for all kids, not just your children or the students who have parents with important jobs or degrees, or just the children of parents who have a lot of money, or even those of the students of parents that you listen to. You support and represent everyone. We are a public school after all. Acting as a professional, you create the reputation of our corporation. I had another community member without students in our schools tell us, let me know when we should sell our house before property values go down, in response to your demonstration at the last meeting. Without professionalism, you encourage the vitriol we have witnessed lately. I should never again be greeted by a student in the classroom with the question, who is this Luke Witt person?
Thank you. Next, we have Gretchen Whitcomb, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, Graham. Geez, Louise, it's been a long day.
No problem. Good evening. My name is Graham Whitcomb. I'm the AP physics teacher at the high school. Whoops, let's get my clock. Time.
We gotcha.
No, I have to see this. We've been through this before. All of my business. Okay. This is my 9th year teaching physics and math at Westside. I'm here tonight to appreciate and support Dr. Greiner, the administrative staff, lovely ladies, and the administrators from all 3 schools. Thank you. As co-president of the Teachers Union, I'm called upon regularly to help solve issues between teachers and school corporation officers. We are averaging about 1 serious issue per 2 weeks, are we not? You hear from me fairly often. Yeah. Often the issues have to do with things like rules and benefits, but sometimes they are of a much more personal nature. Whenever we bring a concern to Dr. Greiner, Mrs. Roth, or Mrs. Kronk, we get a prompt and professional response that has so far always led to a very welcome solution. Thank you. Really, thank you. Every time I have a meeting with administrators too, even Mr. Schreiner, every time, You're always bothering me for pictures. Anyway, at any of our buildings, or I help a teacher prepare for such a meeting, the administrators demonstrate themselves to be knowledgeable and compassionate professionals. We engage in two-way communication with a focus on problem solving and respectful treatment of everyone involved. We rely on each other as professionals to work together to find a solution that works for everyone involved. But I bet you have not heard of any of these problems. Have you? And that's how it needs to stay. In education, we deal with families, with students. The other side of that problem is there's usually a child involved who's having an issue, and that needs to not come out in the community. That needs to be settled by the professionals who can help the child directly, and the family as a whole has a right to privacy. So we cannot function as a school and as a service to the community unless we as professional educators can be relied on to solve these problems. That's what we're trained to do. We've had years of training and experience to do so. You wouldn't want any of these issues to come out, and I'm sure you would agree your family has the right to privacy. I know we'll have some people but not all, in the community. Sorry. I know we'll find a few people who disagree with that, but I can tell looking around, most people do. So, here. As all of us, leaders ourselves, let's please encourage our community to have a constructive dialogue going forward and, and treat educators as the professionals that we are. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate your passion for your career and your vocation is the word I'm looking for, Mrs. Windler.
Good evening. I'm Lori Windler. I'm the library media specialist at the high school. And I am here tonight, first of all, to thank you, to share our appreciation from the library department for, one, we have a school district that has full-time certified library media specialist in every building. That used to be the norm, far from it in Indiana today. We are funded, our school libraries are funded. We are well funded. We can provide databases. We can provide new books. We never have an issue with funding, and that is really important also. So that, we also thank you for that. Our facilities are phenomenal with the changes we've made in all three buildings. Such wonderful libraries where kids are comfortable. They chill, they read, they study, whatever they need to do. The adults, at least in our building, also find it a very welcoming and enjoyable space. The fourth thing I want to thank you for is the freedom to do our jobs. I really can only speak from my perspective, but when I was at Happy Hollow, since I've been up at the high school, I have the freedom to do my job. I was hired as a professional to know what to do as a professional, to know how to select materials for our libraries, materials for our students, for our teachers, and I really appreciate that my administrators support that. That doesn't mean they never come and question. They may say, well, how do you do this? I mean, that's part of our evaluation. But there are districts in Indiana where superintendents will come in and say, here's a list of books, I don't want them on our shelves. That doesn't happen here. It is really important here that we have a diverse collection of books and materials because those are our students. We have a diverse, amount of collection of students also out there. So that's really important. I'm not sure when or if policy 2520 will come up in your readings. That was something we worked on last fall with Dr. Greiner, Mrs. Roth, admin, Connie Workman, Brianne Carroll, and myself. And we now have a formal, removal request procedure. We have a form to use. We have a selection policy, in there. And so I certainly hope that remains. I hope it remains that it continues that the librarians are allowed to do their job and consult those professional resources. That's really important. And on a closing note, if anyone happened to watch 60 Minutes last night, there was a segment, Beaufort, South Carolina. There were 97 books challenged by the Moms of Liberty group. And the superintendent there, he was very adamant that every parent should be able to determine what their child may or may not read. But he was just as adamant that no parent should determine that for anyone else's child. And so what he did, he formed a whole community group. They had like book clubs. They read through these 97 books. And after that process, 92 of those 97 books were returned to those library shelves, as it should be. So I hope in this day and age, we probably will face some book challenges. And if we do, I hope we remember to look at the books as an entirety, to look at the whole situation, to look at our student population, and then make an educated and reasonable decision if need be. All right, thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much. Stute.
Good evening. My name is Randy Student. I teach German at the high school. Excuse me. I want to draw your attention to the non-discrimination policy proposed to replace our current policies during the February 2024 meeting. At the time, the board attorney mentioned that the category of sex as being interpreted by the courts is to include both sexual orientation and gender identity and expression. This is not a complete picture as to our local situation or the intentional inclusion of that language in our current policies. In 1993, West Lafayette and Lafayette were the first cities in Indiana to specifically include sexual orientation in local employment non-discrimination policies, and the state of Indiana has yet to do so. It is unclear if our current state or federal courts would interpret the term sex as to cover this category. Gender identity and expression was covered in West Lafayette employment codes in 2010, and also in Lafayette and Tippecanoe County in the following years. When the West Lafayette School Board last revised board policy starting in 2016, a committee chaired by Dr. Karen Springer invited WLEA co-presidents Lisa Mills and I to comment and suggest additions to the faculty staff portion. Of course, the policies at the time were set up a little differently than what you're working on now. At that time, the board was very intentional in including the phrases sexual orientation and gender identity and expression in all non-discrimination policies for staff as well as students. The population we serve here in West Lafayette is a great mixture of cultures, nationalities, race, religious beliefs, and gender expression. I believe there are 3 community standards to be met by any board policy. First, board policy meets the needs of our students and staff. Everyone needs to be free to learn and work without fear of discrimination. Excuse me. Second, board policy matches West Lafayette city standards. We should at least adhere to those locally agreed upon norms. And number 3, policy cannot depend on state or federal courts to interpret something that you are unwilling to specifically state. So I urge you, and I believe I heard correctly in the work session that will happen, I urge you to include both of these phrases, sexual orientation and gender identity and expression, in the updated policy statements on non-discrimination. Your faculty, your students, and your community are counting on you to do the right thing. I'm going to add one thing to my prepared remarks. I heard the phrase gender status / the phrase that is, and your lawyer can tell you probably more specifically, is being used across the country and across the state is gender identity and expression. Expression will cover a lot of things that have nothing to do with what someone uses as their pronouns. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Olin?
Greetings, Dr. Greiner, school board members, administrators, and all present at this meeting. My name is Emily Oland, and my family and I have been in West Lafayette since 2006. My husband, Matt, and I have proudly raised our family of 3 children in this community, and we graduated our oldest, Everett, in 2012, our middle son, Carson, in 2017, and this year our final chapter, Allie, is graduating in May. When we moved here from Clemson, South Carolina, it was to advance Matt's career as a professor at Purdue, but we chose here specifically because of the excellence of the public schools. I was a certified music teacher, and we both felt strongly that a solid public school education with plenty of opportunities to participate in extracurriculars would set our children up for success. I've spent the last 18 years, that's a big number, being a music and band booster parent, serving in parent council, room parenting, and working on the referendum committee. I spent multiple years substitute teaching in many areas, including a year long-term summing in the band department. I taught private lessons in the band department for 3 years after that, and I have absolutely loved every minute of spending time in our schools. We had no idea when we started this journey in West Lafayette that academics and extracurriculars would only be a part of our story. It turns out our family is one of the many who have children in the LGBTQIA+ community, and specifically the trans and non-binary community. One of the most amazing things about our community is that I can stand here in the public monthly school board meeting and say that out loud without fear. Sorry, it's emotional. In today's climate of legislative persecution, especially of our trans and non-binary students and staff and faculty, that privilege in our community means a whole lot. In the February board meeting, the board began the process of reviewing district policies with the intent of streamlining and revamping. Board Member Mumford identified the non-discrimination policy as one she would like to bring forth for discussion first, and that did happen this evening. I was here. I'm here specifically to ask you to keep the language supporting transgender, non-binary, and genderqueer individuals in district's non-discrimination policy. And I would agree with Randy, this is an aside from my written, that yes, gendered identity and expression is the going term currently. This request goes above and beyond the strictly legally necessary. In my experience, there are areas where we in the West Lafayette community do extra because it is who we are. This is one of those areas. Send our transgender, genderqueer, and non-binary community members and their families and the support and welcome that they deserve. They need to hear it from you, and it needs to be written in the policies in ink. It is a small number of words in a large document that have more impact than you can possibly imagine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. William.
Good evening. Colin William, community member, one graduate of the schools, one kid currently in the schools. I would like to ask the board to imagine for a moment what you would do if you had one free meeting, one whole night to just work on whatever would matter to you. Maybe you could collectively explore grants that could help the school system. Maybe you could work on understanding demographic trends related to home prices that might help forecast where things are going with the school system. Maybe you could just have students come in and talk about what is not working for them. IEP issues, AP exam options, grading pressure. What could you do with one free meeting? I'm guessing that none of you is sitting here thinking, you know, I'd like to spend the whole night discussing meeting minutes. But that's what's happened over the last year. From February of 2023 to February of 2024, this board spent 150 minutes discussing meeting minutes. That's 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, 20 minutes on some other night. It all added up to the equivalent of one full meeting. Respectfully, I'd like to ask you to reconsider this as a priority. Real kids and real teachers have real issues that are really important, and you should feel privileged to be in the position to be able to address those issues. You should feel enthusiastic to address those issues. Please, please, please take that time and devote that time to them.
Thank you. And finally, we have Mr. Kusick. That's okay.
Dave Kusick, and I'm a resident of the West Lafayette School System. My 2 points will remain the same. Unanimous board votes are important for a united community. And I urge you to find a way to find compromise on the issues at hand so that we can have unanimous board decisions that will represent our entire community. Second point, transient housing is a problem. It's taking single-family homes away from our school district that cannot be replaced. The number of school kids that can be available for our school district because of the transient housing is decreasing. So any effort that you guys can make to attend the zoning board meetings, I've got t-shirts that say Save Our West Lafayette School District. I'm happy to provide them to anyone, but showing up at those meetings and having a voice is very important. The other thing that is important is to make sure that the mayor is fully aware of how important this issue is for our school district, so we'll actually have a school district in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody, for taking the time to be here tonight. I really appreciate all of you. Okay, we're going to move on to section 3, which is something new we're going to try here in our meeting. It's called a consent agenda. And before we begin, I'd like to read a letter written by our public access counselor. It was dated July 19th, 2023. and I'm excerpting from the middle. It says, as a practical matter, it is not necessary for a governing body to discuss every issue at length. School boards usually do not micromanage the daily business of a school corporation. Instead, boards set policy, drive innovation, set parameters on spending, and put people in place to execute their vision. Controlling routine duties on a granular level would amount to poor management and governance, as well as marathon meetings. Therefore, a governing body's use of a consent agenda for approving routine business is not prohibited by the open door law. Additionally, this office does not believe that consent agendas are antithetical to transparency. So, given that, I have asked our central office to prepare the agenda with several routine items in a consent agenda. And the way that works is we will take a motion, we will have discussion, and we will vote on all of those items as a package. And if there is anyone who feels that an item needs to be pulled out of the consent agenda and discussed separately, all you need is 2 board members to agree to that. It doesn't need to be voted on. It is simply, I think we should take this out, and I agree. So I'll give you a moment to look over everything, and Mrs. Witt.
To abstain from the personnel report.
Okay.
This evening, one of my children is on it. Yay, lifeguards. So I don't know if we need to pull that out or if we I'm comfortable abstaining from all of these, if that's the preference.
I think we can pull that out and do that as its own item.
Okay.
So we will pull the personnel report out. Is there anything else that needs to be removed from the consent agenda? Mrs. Mumford.
February 12th, regular meeting.
Okay, the minutes of the, is that item 3 or 4? The 4, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Does anyone else agree that number 4 should be removed from the consent agenda? Okay, Mr. Wong, great. I'm just making a note so that we can be clear. I did, I agreed.
Okay.
Is that okay? Does a third person agree that we should remove the personnel report at Mrs. Witt's request? Okay, thank you, Dr. Yen. Okay, so where is that page? So number 4 was removed and number 6. Okay, great, thank you. So we are going to take items 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7 as a unit. Those things include the approval of the agenda for this evening, the minutes from the January 8th finance meeting, the minutes from the February 12th executive session, the field trip, which the swimming and diving team is taking to Indianapolis, and the accounts payable. And I'm going to briefly read the accounts payable description if I can get to the right place in box real quick. Sorry. There are a lot of papers tonight, y'all. Okay. Is it that one or that one? That's not it. Sorry. Do you have it, Mrs. Pronk? Could you please for me? Thank you.
Claims for the corporation, including Wabash Valley Education Center, for the period of February 5th through March 4th, total $3,874,988. A payroll claims docket that posted in between the publishing of the claims docket and the board meeting in January is also included, totaling $806,682.88.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I couldn't find that. All right, so I need a motion on items 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7, please. Moved by Mr. Schott, seconded by Mr. Marley. Is there any discussion? Great. All those in favor of approving those consent agenda items, please show your hands. That is 7-0, Mrs. Julian. All right, and that was 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7. Super. Next item will then be number 4, the approval of the minutes of the February 12th regular meeting. Mrs. Mumford, since you wanted that pulled, would you like to share why?
Yes, in it talks about the discussion continued as to why the Secretary of Board of Finance Board did not review the minutes, and I would like that changed, was not allowed to review the minutes.
As we discussed this afternoon, I'm uncomfortable with the word allowed in that context. Is there another word that would satisfy you other than not allowed?
Yeah, do you have any suggestions?
Mrs. Witt?
I just want to point out that the minutes were posted in our board packet the Wednesday prior, and Mrs. Mumford certainly had access to review those and propose any changes between Wednesday and the following Monday of our meeting. So to me, not allowed seems not appropriate to the actual events of the situation.
Thank you.
So to clarify, this is about the minutes for the finance meeting, which was last month. And I did share the changes that needed to be made to that. And those weren't allowed until pushback was given, and then they were changed. And so the timing of saying about these minutes has nothing to do with what this is documenting.
Can you tell me which line we're looking at? I can't find it.
Yes, it was on page 3 under routine business E.
What if we simply struck the whole line? Where is it? Under new business, item 3. Okay, what if we simply struck the pull-out remark about whether or not you, rather than saying the word allowed, can we just strike that whole part and just move on from it since we've approved the minutes as requested?
I would like to understand who made the changes to the minutes.
So
The financial minutes, who made those changes?
the way that works is Mrs. Julian used Mrs. Cronk's remarks that she read aloud at that meeting. And I think guesses were taken based on previous minutes and also previous discussions that we have had regarding minutes. And it was then left until the board meeting because we are not in the habit of asking your opinion about the minutes. And so when they were uploaded, that would have been your opportunity to have reviewed, and you did. And, but like I said, those have been adjusted to meet what you asked for in your revisions. And so I think we can move on from that. Is that acceptable?
So what I'm trying to understand is once I made the suggestions, the financial minutes were changed.
Yes.
But did not match what I asked. It took more pushback to get them to change. Who made those changes that didn't even line up to anything that I had asked to do?
I had asked Mrs. Julian to make the changes. And then I asked her a second time to make the changes. So I don't think assigning any blame is necessary.
No, I just wanted to understand how this process works because it's not clear.
I think next year, let's talk before the finance meeting and we'll make sure that we have that process tight, because in the past, I think it's been the same person who does the other minutes. So it just was outside of our normal scope of doing things and got overlooked. Okay? So we're going to make a motion then to strike that paragraph. Is that, could you please?
Yes.
Okay. And is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Wong. Any other discussion? Great. All in favor of striking the part that says Mrs. Mumford did not review the minutes, please raise your hand. Okay, that's 7-0, Mrs. Julian. And if you could help me remember to fix that after the meeting, I'll write it down too, but you know how I am. Okay. Sorry. We have to, have we moved and seconded? Have we moved and seconded on accepting the minutes and we're discussing now? Right, so we can, yes, thank you. So now we can return to the original motion, which is to approve the minutes as amended. Does anyone have any further discussion? Great, all those in favor of approving those minutes as amended? I'm sorry, go ahead.
So kind of follow up with Ms. Manford's question about the procedure. I have a suggestion, or maybe I can make a motion. I'm not sure which better way.
Okay.
And so my suggestion is maybe in the future, and because based on the community feedback, the minutes really took a lot of time. But the thing is, sometimes it's inaccurate, and we took a long time to discuss. And some inaccurate phrase, some people think it's a split the hair, but from other perspective, when something is incorrect, and so we should fix it. So I feel the solution can be maybe in the future, and Mrs. Julian drafted the minutes, and then the board can discuss, I mean, you make a revision suggestions, and the board secretary can work on the minutes further and to fix it. So on the meeting day, hopefully we have a revised minutes and to vote on. And so we can save time that way. I also feel it's kind of time consuming to discuss this, but sometimes, yes, there are some inaccurate information. Even the current one, actually, I see another one, but I don't want to waste people's time to discuss it further, but it's inaccurate. Like the one Mr. Wang made
we already approved that, so let's not go back and discuss.
Right, so but anyway,
I understand. I appreciate you
I'm
looking
just trying to figure out a way for all of us to save time on this.
I appreciate you trying to solve the problem. I think anytime there's a leadership change from one group to another, there are going to be speed bumps since we figure out, how I'm going to do things differently from Ms. Witt and how Tom is going to do things differently from me. And we're working through that now. And I think as we go forward, we'll get a better process. And just like I started new processes for like adding to the agenda and so on, this is another area where we need a process. So if you would like to take the lead on writing a process, I'd be happy to start with something. The same way Mrs. Mumford started with the communication plan.
Yeah, I can make a motion in terms of, when
I think what we
is
need
needed.
is a document that says, here's how we're going to do the thing. And it's going to start with Mrs. Julian and Mr. Schott.
Yeah.
And then after that, there would be steps to take. So if you could brainstorm how that would work for you, we can look at that together.
Not
But right now,
me. I mean, for
all of us. But
so to save time, because I also feel we put a lot of burden on Mrs. Julian for this minutes revision. I hope that we can share those.
I agree. I hope
so
that
she doesn't need to revise it again. So
and there are tools in Box that we could use that might be more efficient.
Right.
So the problem we get into is where we're voting on things in Box rather than here. So we need to be very careful of that.
It's not
and
like a voting, it's more feedback.
Polling even can be legally dicey. So we can discuss this later. If you'd like to call me, we can discuss how to do that communication document. But I think that would really help going forward.
Yes.
So I appreciate that. So now we need to
May I just
vote.
make one more comment?
I guess.
And so in terms of people kind of curious, I will say after all this discussion and all this work, and if you compare the current minutes with the one 3 years ago, I would say it's so much more informative and it has so much more information and increase the transparency and make it easier for the community to know what's going on. And yes, we do have the video recording and audio recording, but if you have the minutes, have a brief summary, it's helpful.
Okay.
And even like recently, and the community input and before.
Call the question, please.
Thank you. I agree. It's time to move on.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing.
Thank you. I'm glad you're pleased with the minutes. So let's go ahead and vote. I'm sorry? I think we have a motion and a second on approving the minutes for February 12th, right?
I've called the question, so that just means we vote.
We vote. Yep, Rachel called the question. Okay. All in favor of approving the minutes? Hold it. Did we amended them? As amended, right. As amended. And we will put those through Box. Please raise your hand. Great, that's 7-0. Okay, now we'll move on to the personnel report. Where's my list? The personnel report. Is there anything we need to read about that? I don't think there is. Okay, can I have a motion on the personnel report? Second. Moved by Mr. Schott, seconded by Mr. Marley. Ms. Witt is going to abstain. Congratulations to your almost employed child. All those in favor of approving the personnel report, please raise your hand. That is 601, Mrs. Julian. Okay, we're going to move on. There's no unfinished business. So the next item is the policies. And what we're going to do, since we had several that we did not need to discuss. Sorry, I have so many folders. They're over here. Thank you. 275 and 350, which are school wellness and civility and decorum, do not need to be discussed as we decided during our work session. So if I could have a motion. I skipped. Oh, you're right, I did. Sorry, I got all excited that we had two to pass. Would you please go ahead and share with us about the resolution of the board policy? Thank you.
The resolution for your policy system change is to put in place and memorialize that you're embarking on a change in your system and what that will look like. It has, at the beginning of the resolution, information about your goals, including streamlining, maintaining legal compliance, clarity, et cetera. And then it lays out the system with the A through H organization system that you will end up with.
Great. Anybody have any comments or questions on that? Okay, Ms. Mumford.
How will this work so for example, tonight we may approve 2 of them. How will this overlap with the board docs and the number system work for the next few months as we have old members and new members?
I love your optimism that it's only going to be a few months. Would you like to share how that's going to work?
Yeah, I mean, it's really more of a decision of what you determine to put on your website, et cetera. But I can tell you, so this is not a legal matter, but more of a practical matter.
Right.
Just to clarify that. You can have both of them, and there are districts that during the months that they were in transition had some policies with the letters and some still with the numbers. That's also why you have your deletion list, so that you can always you don't have 2 conflicting policies. So you may have a policy on one topic that's in your AB alphabet and a policy on a totally different topic that's from your old. But you don't want to have an old and a new on the same policy, on the same topic. And so you do that with your deletions. But you can have both partial letter system and the old number system in the exact same spot.
Okay, so are we still paying Neola for board docs, or have we decided, I don't remember we've ever approved board docs outside of Neola. Where are we at on that?
Our agreement with Neola is over in April.
Okay.
And so we will then have to get our own subscription to board docs because that's part of our Neola agreement. Is that correct?
That is part of the Neola agreement. The question will be, do we want to use the system that Mr. Hamilton has begun creating, or do we want to continue services with board docs?
Okay, so when we approve some tonight, it won't go on the board docs because that is expiring in April. And in April, we'll discuss.
We actually have access to board docs, I believe, until June 30. Didn't we talk about that, Ms. Julian? Yes. We have access to board docs through June 30. We can continue paying for access to board docs so that you can see the old board policies as we continue on and put the new policies on our website that Mr. Hamilton has created. So that's an option. That's kind of at the will of the board for that.
Okay, so in a future meeting, we'll be discussing it. We've talked about possibly using board docs and different prices, but I've never seen this come before the board or a discussion.
That's correct. That's a future decision, and until June, we have access to board docs.
I think everybody wanted to see how this was going to go before we got too far into the weeds of the changes to the electronics. Do you have a preference about whether we should continue with board docs or copy everything over?
That's up to you. That is purely an internal organizational decision. We always say we're not like Neola. These are not our policies. They're your policies once you adopt them. So you do with them what you wish in terms of where you house them.
Okay. Dr. Yin?
Would the board like to see a presentation from Mr. Hamilton, how that will look, and the board make a decision at some point in the near future? And with that, we can also have the cost of using board docs on our own. That way the board can make an informed decision.
And if you could make a recommendation, Mr. Hamilton, as to which would be easier for your team, whether that was using board docs or switching everything over and then deleting them as we get through them, that'd be cool too. Okay. Okay, great. So we will be looking at that as our subscription to board docs expires. Okay? Where are we at? I don't even, yeah.
I think probably right now, once we get approved, say tonight, we vote and approved, we can put on Ms. Emerson's new system. So we have kind of parallel things after we use for a while, and then we will see, maybe you can sunset the whole board doc or something like, we will decide that later after we use a few minutes.
That makes sense.
Days.
I think the problem would be paying for something we're not truly using for a long period of time. So if we can start moving through these and getting them done more quickly, I think that would be reasonable.
Yeah, we can move these things.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, though, we have to pick one version of the policy. We can't.
Right. So we would, as we adopt new policies, we'd use the document that's the crossover to delete the ones from board docs that we're no longer using. And so eventually it would just kind of fade away.
So when we are voting to approve a policy, are we also then approving in the same passage to deleting the corresponding policies? We have to do both sides of the action, correct?
That is recommended.
That is recommended.
That's what you had, by making this crossover document, I think you made the decision that you wanted to go that route. So that's a matter of what the motion is.
So I need to find the crossover document so we can have motions to get rid of
Yeah.
the
We have to
others.
get rid of and create at the same time. They can't.
Right. Isn't it fun doing new things? This is such a good time.
You're doing great.
Let me find it.
First, you have the resolution to approve, though, in terms of where you are.
Let's do the resolution first. So do we have any more comments about the resolution? Have we firsted and second? Okay. I need a motion on the board resolution, please. So moved by Mr. Wong. Second by Mr. Marley. Any more discussion on the board resolution? Great. All those in favor of passing the board resolution, please raise your hand. That would be everybody, Mrs. Julian. Okay. Now I'm going to find the policy replacement document. Here we go.
Well, or if you want to do the policy, I can read you what's on it.
Okay, yeah, I found it just then. Okay, so the first one we're going to take is A275 school wellness. I need a motion, please.
So move.
What you moving? Move to adopt?
Move to adopt the policy.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seconded by Mr. Marley. Okay. Any discussion?
That's my question. Basically, we voting adopt this new policy. We also
Yeah, I'm going to do that next.
repeal the old.
I'm going to do that next. Don't worry, I got you.
Oh, okay. Good,
I
good.
got you. Okay, because it's right on here. Okay, so all those in favor of adopting school wellness policy A275, please raise your hand. That passes 7-0. That policy replaces 8510, 7530.01, 7530.02, 7540. What? A275 has all of these. Neola number.
It's a technology. It's
Yeah,
only
next line
8510.
probably.
Oh, is that a whole pile with the responsible use of technology?
Yeah, that's
I don't have
technology.
lines.
I think this
Okay.
we only have one policy.
It's
should be
just
repealed.
8510. Can you verify that, Ms. Matthews?
I can't off the top of my head because I don't know your old policies well enough, but I can, if you have them on your board docs, I can do that momentarily.
They are on board docs. WL.K12.in.us.
Just a second and I can.
This is going to be so much smoother next month when we've looked into this already. It is 8510. Thank you. You've got
Yeah,
lines.
80-something.
I have no lines.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so we need a motion to repeal 8510.
Yeah, I do believe it's just 8510 as the 7530 series is very
Is
technologically focused.
technological.
Yes,
Okay.
I can confirm that now.
Thanks. Moved by Mr. Wong, seconded by Ms. Witt, and let's have a vote. All those in favor of repealing 8510? Great, that's everybody again. Super. Okay, so I'm gonna write down 8510. Okay. That was fun. Let's go to A350, civility and decorum, and this one does not have one next to it that it replaces.
No, because it's brand new.
Because it's a first reading. Okay, so we're gonna move that to a second reading.
It's a new policy. I think we already have. Yeah.
There's nothing to delete.
Oh,
because
I
there was
see.
nothing before.
Okay, so this is still on second reading.
Yes, correct.
I gotcha.
It's
Okay.
just a matter of you don't need to vote on any deletions.
Got it. Okay, I need a motion for
For
A350.
me,
Move to adopt A350, Mr. Wong, seconded by Ms. Witt. Any discussion? No? All those in favor of adopting policy A350? That passes 7-0. Look at that, we got 2. Okay. Okay. All right. Ms. Matthews, would you please take us through the board policies that are up for first reading this evening?
Okay. It's my understanding from your sheet that you have A100, anti-harassment and non-discrimination, A125, nepotism and conflict of interest.
I think we're on the B list. Those are our second reading. We did those already. So
Oh.
do you have the Bs? I'm sorry.
The A is showing here on the sheet. As
Oh, that's
the
sorry.
second batch from the C200, start from C to anti-bullying.
On the back.
Yeah, on that spreadsheet.
Oh,
Anti-bullying to C200.
I'm not able to tell where, I can start with this. If you're doing the C, D, and H, you had C200 anti-bullying,
Yeah, that's the,
C350 student discipline,
yes.
D175 board staff communications, and H250 the removal request procedure.
Right. Thank you. And those will be on the website for the community to review for the next month. And they're going to the end of our list of policies. So we're going to keep going with the As in our work sessions prior to our meetings, as long as it takes until we get down through those. So we'll be refining this process as we go through it. But I think that will work out eventually. Okay. Do you have anything else to share about? Okay, cool. Let's move on to the district priorities, transportation center. Dr. Greiner. Sorry, you didn't expect that.
So our office requested to have this item put on the agenda for discussion among the board. And the reason was, it was clear to us there were some other ideas out there. And so I want to first review the process we went through to get where we are today. And then I'm going to allow the board, or we're going to request that the board have time to discuss among yourselves to help guide us.
Thank you very much.
In the direction that you would like to go moving forward with the most recently I lost my word. They've left.
The words have disappeared.
They've left our building. They have abandonment of the Weebeck building.
Vacated.
Thank you.
There you
Vacated.
go. That's
Good. Want to make it softer? All right. Thank you. So, as you're aware, we've been providing information as it develops regarding the Wabash Valley Education Center building, which they have leased for many years. We'll call it the WEVAC moving forward. And they've requested that, had requested that the lease be terminated, which has since occurred. We've expressed interest in relocating our central office to that space, given additional space opportunity that we believe is necessary, as well as it allows the board to have board meetings in that space because it's got a boardroom available. The following points are what led to the recommendation. It was related to the priority, the board's priorities for this year. Number 3, facilities. develop a plan for a possible transportation facility. So when this building was vacated, the WEVAC, we saw that as an opportunity at a fairly cost-neutral approach to getting the transportation office near their buses, closer to the majority of their buses. And so I wanted to quickly review, in the spirit of transparency with the board, the communication that our office has had with the board, either through board meetings or through Friday notes. On October 27th, our office notified the board that WEVAC intended to terminate its lease. And then on November 3rd, the WEVAC board approved that action to terminate the lease. And our office expressed interest at that time on November 3rd that the WEVAC site might be a good place to house the central office. We notified the board that any interested board members could tour the facility. Mrs. Austin, as you're aware, you took us up on that offer, and we took you through the facility, and we thank you for your interest in doing that. On December 8th, we notified the board that the district needs to terminate the lease agreement, and that needed to be a board action item. And so this January 12th, the office provided the board with a resolution to terminate that lease. On January 17th, our office staff visited the WEVAC building to assess storage and meeting space needs. And then in January 19th, our office communicated to the board that WEVAC had confirmed they would vacate in March. We also reiterated that we're still interested in moving the central office to that space, and that for more space, and that we also felt that it addressed a portion of board priority related to the transportation office. On February 12th, at the board meeting, the resolution to terminate WEVAC lease was presented to the board. Mr. Wong and Dr. Yin expressed interest in exploring the WEVAC facility as a preschool. That's where we realized the board needed to continue dialogue, and so we are encouraging the board to have that dialogue. Now, given that interest, I am going to tell you that we still believe that having a preschool pilot program is much more suitable in one of our schools, as we have said previously to the board. And we believe that because that would allow proper oversight by a principal. It would allow us to easily meet safety obligations. It would allow access to current playground equipment. It would allow prompt qualification to paths to quality level 3 or 4. Level 3 or 4 is required to allow us to qualify for preschool vouchers. Preschool vouchers are important to our office because we recognize that in the future, if we would determine that the pilot was a success, it would allow us to get to our students that need that opportunity for preschool to close gaps, but maybe can't afford it. And so those vouchers allow for that funding to occur through those voucher opportunities. Mrs. Kronk, do you have anything to add?
Share that from the business office point of view, we've really outgrown our space with respect to files. We have our files in probably 3 different locations in the district. So if we need to pull anything historically, we have to go to 3 different places to find it right now. If you've ever tried to walk on the business office side of the office, we have filing cabinets everywhere. You can't walk anywhere without running into the corner of one. So the WEVAC building is kind of set up the same as our building, but it's much larger. Everybody would have individual kind of private workspaces to effectively and efficiently complete their work. For instance, payroll would have their own space so they could keep their payroll files with them in their office, and also have a place to meet privately with new employees or employees that are resigning. Benefits, same thing, or benefit specialists meeting with employees that are going to go on leave. It's always nice to have a private space to meet. We really don't have that right now. Right now, even our meeting space, it's in the foyer. That's not really private either. So this would afford us the opportunity to meet all of those desires that we have. Plus, the building has a lot of different storage spaces. It has a multi-car garage, but one of the garages is already closed off and is temperature controlled for files, so that's something we don't have access to right now. And there's also a separate space in that building just for files, in addition to several closets as well. So also, the transportation department doesn't currently have an office space. They have a desk in the maintenance building. This would allow the transportation department to have a centralized location where they could meet with their bus drivers, have a meeting space for the bus drivers to come and meet with each other, have professional development. The transportation director can hold everything in that one space close to where the majority of the buses are actually parked for the district. So.
Okay. So this is an info only. Does anyone have any questions or opinions? Rachel, is that you going like that? No, it was Mr. Wong. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I just thank you for Dr. Brenner and also Ms. Cronk get the information. So with more information, I think you guys the plan is I think that's better plan. So especially we have pre-K pilot program in our school buildings. That really makes sense to me. So I think whatever you decide, I think I'm okay with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wong.
Appreciate it.
Dr. Yan?
Appreciate the additional information. I think it's very helpful. And so just I can see the rationale for that. I agree with your decision. And so I just wonder, so you mentioned that there might be possibility to have pilot preschool in Willis and Willis, and is it on the plan, or what's status of that?
Yes, that is our plan, to work with our administrators, Mrs. Psaros and Mrs. Delaney, and Mrs. Roth and I plan to work together, and of course include Mrs. Cronk in that planning phase to work through the financials and so forth. And we've begun to develop that plan. We're in the process of discussing that, and we will get information to the board as that continues to develop.
Ms. Witt?
Dr. Greiner, is it the same, are you in the same general line of thinking that you were this time last year when this was being discussed? It's a pilot preschool?
Correct.
So it's based, you're kind of in the same ballpark. This isn't a revamp from what we
That's
talked
correct.
about last year. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So it seems like this is fairly uncontroversial at this time. We could have a motion to approve the procedure of our central offices moving, if anyone was interested in motioning that. Mr. Wong, is that, you'd like to move to proceed with, is there a second? Second. Okay, Ms. Witt, any other discussion?
I have a question, not necessarily in regards to the movement, but about the board meetings being moved. Is there, I guess the little bit that I've been in there wasn't any room that was as large as this one that would handle board meetings. So I was just trying to understand what the capacity is for board meetings.
And you correct me if you're wrong,
No,
if I'm wrong, and you guys too. We believe the capacity would be there, but you are welcome also. We'll take you, anybody, board member that still wants to go through, we can do that and show you that room. I think.
So it would have as many seats as we're able to provide here?
They would be a little closer, I think.
Yeah, we'd be closer, but I do believe it would have
I don't
the.
think there would be as much open space as what we have here, but yeah.
So it wouldn't feel as spacious. And I would guess the room, rough estimate, is roughly half of this. So as Dr. Greiner said, we would be closer, but it would still accommodate. I know I've been to professional development sessions there where they easily host probably 50 to 75 people.
And you can, again, Mrs. Muffet, we'd be happy to take you through though, because.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Dr. Yin.
Either are we going to use this room for other function, or?
That's a good question. This room would then be available to the robotics groups. If they had run-throughs they wanted to do, it would be available possibly to the community. If they had things, there are a lot of things we could use this room for. And the thing that struck me when we went through was that that need for privacy there. When we're in the central office having a conference and people are walking into the building and it's everyone from the UPS guy to, everybody can walk right in. It's not very private. And the nice thing about this space is there are several areas that would be of various sizes that would be private, so that there could be a small conference going on at the same time as a professional development meeting, and everyone would have a door that shuts. So I think that would be really super. Ms. White?
I would just like to say that this space, it probably gets used a little bit more than we might be aware by different groups and organizations. And I would be interested in, or would just throw out there the comment that it might be worthwhile to find out who uses it before any permanent changes were made to the space.
Yep. We're not going to displace anybody. So, and also I think Mr. Hamilton would enjoy it more because the audio equipment wouldn't need to be moved back and forth when the room is used. So, okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there anything else? Great. All those in favor of allowing our central office to proceed with using the WEVEC building as their offices, please raise your hand. And that passes 7-0. Thank you very much. Look at us getting things done that we didn't even have on the schedule. Good job. Where are we? We are at Safe Harbor. Mrs. Roth.
The board is asked to approve the contract with Safe Harbor. Safe Harbor uses spaces at the elementary and intermediate schools to offer before and after school care. They also use spaces in our district to conduct summer programs. Included in the board packet is the contract with Safe Harbor. The price and services offered remain the same from last year's contract. Safe Harbor maintains its license status and maintains ratios to meet CCDF requirements, which allow the program to accept vouchers from qualifying families. Safe Harbor also maintains their liability and takes responsibility for staff qualifications and training. There are minor changes not negatively affecting the student or family experience. Safe Harbor has been able to increase their capacity from 30 to 55 for the morning program. This is the existing capacity for the afternoon program. Please recall that capacity will vary depending on the age of the student. You can have more first through fifth grade students than you can kindergarten with the ratios. The contract now reflects that Safe Harbor may stay in the building for up to an additional 15 minutes for cleanup as needed. And the contract now specifies that summer programs will conclude in the 2 weeks before school to afford time for the preparation of the building and classrooms prior to the start of the school year. This is new language, but it was the existing practice. They just decided to put it in the contract itself. Other factors in play related to this community-wide concern of childcare. There is no wait list for the morning or intermediate sessions. The elementary school has a wait list for the afternoon session. The WL Parks and Rec program, just incidentally, also has a wait list. It is a community concern. Both providers have indicated that they consistently work to move children and families into spots and reduce the wait list as quickly as they can. Again, we do realize it's a community-wide concern, and we're grateful too that Purdue has created a task force dedicated to looking at increasing childcare availability as well for students, faculty, and staff, their children. With that, again, the recommendation is to approve the contract with Safe Harbor.
Thank you. All right, I need a motion to moved by Mr. Marley, seconded by Mr. Schott. Is there any discussion? Ms. Witt? Yeah.
On here, I noticed that it gives the option for them to clean or for them to pay us to clean. I'm just curious which they're doing.
Do we know?
Currently.
Please, yes. Hi.
Safe Harbor and the working director. With me and my other working director, Amanda Justice. We do clean up after ourselves. We mop the floors, we sanitize the tables before the children ever enter the rooms, sanitize the tables before they leave, we sanitize the toys. If there's something on the floor, we definitely are going to sweep our floors and mop our floors. We don't wax them.
That's all right. I don't wax my floors.
We do all of our own cleaning for the children's activities.
So that's the additional 15 minutes, if I understood correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Previously, I think it said 8:45, and that's about the time that the children are dismissed, and our staff may need to still go back in
A little bit
and
more.
clean up a little bit.
Thank you for clarifying.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with us about your program as long as you're here? I don't want to put you on the spot, but
Well, first of all, we really appreciate the ability to use the school for the before and after school program. It's obviously in high demand with 50 children in the afternoon. And we are staffing that with 5 to 6 employees. We go over the ratio to make sure. Someone said licensed program. We are not a licensed program. Because we are in a school, we are not able to be licensed. We are an unlicensed exempt program.
Unlicensed exempt, thank you.
That takes the CCDF, and we maintain those standards voluntarily so that we can take the CCDF children and be able to offer vouchers for the low-income children. We could still operate legally without following all those guidelines. We choose to follow those guidelines.
okay, super. Thank you.
Any other
very much.
questions?
Thank you so much.
Mr. Wong, please.
Since you're here, I just wondering, because a lot of people is on the waiting list, so basically, from your point of view, what's the limitations for you guys increase the capacities for after-school program?
We are guided by the state of Indiana, and any one group, no matter how much space you have, cannot be more than 55 children.
Oh, okay.
If we had a separate room, then you can increase. But any one group in one space can only be 55 children.
Having observed groups of 55 children, I think there's a good reason. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate
Anything
it.
else?
Any other questions?
Dr.
Maybe.
Yang? Oh, sorry, Mr. Wong, we'll come back.
Yeah, follow up. Do you guys offer the summer camp, any that kind of things? For,
Yes, we do, and we offer it here at West Lafayette. One year it's at the intermediate and one year it's at the elementary. We trade each year as to which school it's going to be at. And we have been operating that. Margaret, can you tell me how many years?
It's been a long time.
At least 5 years. At least 5 or 6 years. Yeah.
So you,
Safe Harbor has been in operation since 2008,
okay.
and we started at Burnett Creek. We operate in 6 different schools, so we're all over the county. The summer program we offer to West Lafayette students 2 weeks prior to opening it to the public.
So I just trying to understand, clarify, I understand correctly. So you offer the summer camp is on our school location facility?
Yes.
So the limitation is kind of 55, pretty much.
Beg your
The
pardon?
limitation, the capacity of your summer camp is
It's
55. So you already got the registration full?
Well,
right?
we had to make
No?
sure we still had a contract before
Oh,
we are ready to hit the ground running. We have everything prepared. We expected to move forward. We usually don't do enrollment for summer camp
okay,
until March,
okay.
but we expect it to be full.
So right now you have only one group, either in intermediate school or elementary school.
Correct.
So is there possible to have both of the, have 2 groups?
Well, it's certainly not possible in the schools. The agreement was so that they have the opportunity to clean and things like that. Now, if you would like to vacate this room and let us have it for the summer, any other spaces that we could ever possibly have, there is the need. There is very much the need.
That's my understanding.
We have, I don't remember what my numbers are exactly, over 100 children enrolled in West Lafayette schools, and well over 100 or so children enrolled in the Tippecanoe County schools too.
Wow. Well, we appreciate
Okay,
the
thank you.
service you
Appreciate it.
provide to the community. Yui, did you have a question also?
Thanks. First of all, thank you so much for providing the opportunities for the students, and I believe many families really appreciate this after school and before school care, and especially for those who work the whole day. And so I also appreciate that you include the program change for 2024 and based on probably people's feedback, and so to continue improve the after school care for
That is
the
definitely our
families.
goal. I'm a substitute teacher for West Lafayette and Tippecanoe County also. This is my 50th year
Wow.
in early childhood education. I was the center director of Just Us Kids prior to that for 40 years. I love what I do. I love walking into those programs. It's who I am and it's what I do, and I will continue to strive to improve the program.
And just one question, and I wonder whether you do like annual feedback, solicit family feedback from those
That was just
participants?
asked of us. We changed directors in December. I am not aware of one that they have done in the last year or two, but it certainly will be moving forward.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thanks. I would like to move to the vote if we could. We've had a motion and a second, if I remember right. So all those in favor of approving this contract, please raise your hands. Wonderful. That's everybody, Mrs. Julian. Thank you very much. And thank you. Right. Next thing we're going to do is the public library, and that's Mrs. Kronk.
Renovations have been completed at the Grandview Cottage, which is located at the cemetery in between central office and the intermediate school. West Lafayette Public Library intends to hold some evening and weekend events at the cottage and has requested that patrons be allowed to park in the West Lafayette Intermediate School parking lot, as they only have space for about 3 cars at the cottage. They will notify the school corporation at least 2 weeks in advance of events before they advertise where parking will be available. School administration has been consulted and does not see an issue since we will be notified in advance. The agreement is included in your board packets. Please approve as submitted.
Okay. I need a motion. Moved by Ms. Witt and seconded by Mr. Wong. Any discussion? Okay. All those in, oops, please.
I was just going to say, I obviously live about 2 doors down from that caretaker's cottage, and I really want to applaud the work that they've done to manage that and develop that site from the mosquito trap that it was for a great many years. I am hopeful that we can move forward and support that little gem in our community.
Thank you. I agree. It looks great. Ms. Mumford, yes.
On the MOU, it gives the address of 1200 North Southbury Street, which I thought was this parking lot, where the intermediate school is like 1854.
Did I put the wrong?
So I just didn't, I mean, I don't have any issues with this agreement. It just, the MOU with the address, it was pointed out to me.
She had mentioned to me both the intermediate and our parking lot. Obviously, we have patrons park at our parking lot all the time for a bunch of different things. So, but I have been working with Miss Saros to make sure that she's available, or her parking lot's available as well. So,
Do we need to fix that address? Do we need to amend it, or?
this is the contract that she sent me, so it would be what this contract is.
Oh, okay. Yes, we need to just go ahead and approve it and understand that it covers all the parking lots?
It's for this parking.
It's written for this parking lot. Okay, go ahead, you.
Kind of connected with the earlier one we just approved, the transportation the office will be moved here. Will there be any implication on where the school bus will be parked? And will
Right.
the school
There is set school bus parking there right now, and I did have the conversation with her that our buses do park in this space, and so that we have to make sure that the school buses can get in and out. And so if there are any issues, I'm sure I can bring that up with her, so.
Okay.
Okay.
All those
Yeah,
in-
so just to confirm, they want to use this parking lot, right? Not Willie's.
They want to use both parking lots, or
In this contract, it's just the 1,200 that she is asking.
so that's here.
This one, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, all those in favor of approving the MOU with the library, please raise your hand. That's everybody, Mrs. Julian. Super. Okay, next up is still Mrs. Kronk, and it is the Skyward contract.
Okay. I apologize for that. That was my fault. I just saw our address. I was like, oh, it's obviously the intermediate. That was on me. I sincerely
No biggie.
apologize for that.
If we need to revise it and bring it back next month, we can do it
Yeah,
again.
I'll
It's
ask
not a
her
big
if she
deal.
wants us to do one for the intermediate as well, so.
Or, yeah, we could have a second agreement, sure.
Okay, the technology department is requesting permission to renew our software agreement with Skyward for our student data information system for the next 3 years. Locking in the cost for 3 years affords us a large discount compared to annual pricing. The annual cost per student for all necessary modules amounts to $10.24. The total annual cost would be approximately $25,000. The software is necessary to house our student data, state reporting, fee tracking, food service payments, student support, online enrollment, and textbook tracking and inventory. Please approve the software renewal as submitted to allow for the continuity in our student information system.
Alrighty, thank you. I need a motion. Moved by Mr. Marley, seconded by Mr. Wong. Any discussion? Ms. Witt?
It would just help me to understand what the increase has been off of current. I have absolutely no issue with Skyward. I'm just curious if there's a percentage of increase.
I know they all increase their rates every
Right.
year.
Right. Minimal increase. I assumed if you did not tell us it was minimal, but thank you for the clarification.
Any other questions or comments? Great. All those in favor of approving the Skyward contract, please raise your hands. That's everybody. Mrs. Julian, thank you. Next, back to Mrs. Kronk for the E-rate 2 category project approval.
During budget planning for 2024, the technology department indicated that upgrades to our network infrastructure were needed as equipment is nearing its end of life. The purchase was included on our capital projects plan during the budget process. Mr. Hamilton has been working with our E-rate consultant at AdTech through the proper channels of obtaining federal E-rate Category 2 funding to help supplement the cost of these upgrades. Our district is eligible for a 50% discount on approved projects through that funding mechanism. We've gone through the necessary processes required for a Category 2 project, including the publication of notices of request for proposals, a question and answer period, and a final assessment of those proposals. Wintech submitted the winning proposal for the network infrastructure replacement at a total cost of $231,510. With our E-rate discount, the final cost to the district will be approximately $115,000. So that Category 2 funding is very helpful to school districts. The Wintech contract is included in your board packets. Please approve as submitted so that we can get a PO started and they can start planning for the replacement of those pieces of equipment.
Okay, I need a motion, please. Moved by Mr. Schott, second by Mr. Wong. Any discussion on that one? Super. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Wonderful, that's everybody again, Mrs. Julian. All right, the next item is the finance update.
Me again.
Yep.
The object breakdown of this month's claims has been included in your board packets like normal. A preliminary fund report dated February 29th shows a total cash balance on hand for the district of $18,088,499. The education fund has a cash balance of $3,430,146. Please remember that this is preliminary as we are still in the process of posting revenue for the month of February. We have some great news. Our payroll specialist, Nathan Snyder, was recently voted in as the Indiana Association of School Business Officials School Support Professional of the Year for Region 4. We're certainly proud of Nathan, his work ethic, and his continued progress towards IASBO certification. He will be presented with his award in May at the IASBO annual meeting. We recently concluded our biennial State Board of Accounts audit. The information is currently embargoed by the State Board until they release their final report, which will be available publicly at that time on their website. We will share more information at the April board meeting. We're also currently planning our annual teacher retirement information session on March 26th for any teacher wanting to learn more about how retirement works at West Lafayette schools. And then Brian Hoffman, our VALIC representative, will also be presenting a retirement planning presentation on April 16th at 4:30 p.m.
Super. And that one's info only. So does anyone have any questions? Okay, super. Thank you. And the next item is the junior senior high school ground floor update, which is me. And I will read the memo. The West Lafayette Education Foundation has fundraised money in the past for renovations to the West Lafayette Junior Senior High School. They currently have approximately $1.6 million that they would like to transfer to the school corporation for the purposes of commencing ground floor renovations, including locker rooms and restrooms that will be utilized by all students. We will be asking in April that the board accept the funds from WLSEF into the school corporation accounts to be tracked separately in a construction fund specifically for the ground floor renovations. The Fanning Howey study of the ground floor is included in your board packets for consideration. The study outlines different projects that could be completed on the ground floor to meet the needs of both academics and athletics at the high school. As can be seen, the cost of the renovations is more than the funding that is currently available. The WLSEF Executive Board believes that they have the ability to continue fundraising efforts to fully fund the Phase 1 project of the ground floor, as well as to work toward funding the Phase 2 through 4 projects. In April, that will come before the board to approve the foundation moving forward with continued fundraising efforts. This item is for discussion and information only, and we will bring back an official recommendation in April. So with that, Mrs. Witt, do you have questions?
I do have questions, and I appreciate Mr. Strode being here because I suspect he's the person to answer them.
Probably.
When we initially toured this, and I want to be clear that I'm talking about the difference between PE and athletic teams. I think athletic team locker room environments are different. One of the things that I admire about our PE programs at Westside is they really seem to work hard to promote lifelong fitness with our students. Students are required in the state of Indiana to take PE. I think looking out into the future, I personally find it to be shocking that children in our schools are still required to disrobe twice a day in front of one another in order to graduate from high school. And so I would like to see locker room facilities specifically for PE that allow students for some privacy for any of the myriad of reasons that they might desire privacy. And that's a big number of reasons why. And so I'm really very interested in understanding. I could not tell from the drawings if that was included in there. All I could see were 3 kind of locker changing, but I know our PE classes are larger than that. And if anything, the space looked more compressed for me in the PE locker room. So I'm hoping maybe you could explain to me how that issue of modesty and privacy is being addressed in those spaces.
Sure. I think first off, thanks to Dr. Greiner and the board for having this on the agenda. You know, any discussion about this is progress in the correct direction, I think. I think it's important for everybody to remember that this was just an initial drawing, really kind of gifted to us from KJG back in 2021 or 2022. And then, of course, Fanning Howey has kind of taken that initial drawing and added to it. And I would say that I would lead towards them as being the experts in what we need for the facility rather than myself. I think the advice that we've provided them have been through the lens of PE teachers, coaches, athletic administrators, school administrators, to provide safer locker rooms for supervision and the challenges that we face. Now, obviously, there are going to be ongoing challenges with locker room facilities and what various groups of students need. I guess part of what you see there are some open spaces, of course, but there's also additional separate spaces that can still be supervised by teachers. You know, we have various grade levels that we have to accommodate, not just athletic teams, but obviously with the school day, the PE, we have various genders that we have to accommodate, and by having separate, clean, well-lit spaces with attached coach's office or teacher offices that allow us to supervise more effectively. But again, I think it's important to know that these are initial drawings, and I don't think we're necessarily close to breaking ground. I hope we are, but I don't think that's the reality. So I think there's a lot of conversation, a lot of feedback still to gather before we get to the actual construction phase.
Just clarify too that the purpose of this was to see what the cost would be and to give us an idea of different projects that we could do to meet the needs. And so this, by all means, is not anywhere close to an actual architectural plan. It's kind of a breakdown.
Yeah, I really appreciate the clarification. I think it's something that we have an opportunity in West Lafayette to be a little bit forward-thinking in terms of what students are going to need in the future. And again, I'm not trying to say that I know better than our PE teachers and our coaches, and I understand there's a lot of different dynamics at play. But I also know that a great many of our students consider PE something to be endured, not something to take a lifelong lesson out of. And I would hope that we would be trying to impart the wisdom of fitness on our students, not of shame. And so that's really at the heart of what I'm speaking to you about today. I hope that as those plans develop, those conversations can be had as part of it.
Thanks. I share your concern. I remember PE in the 90s and the 80s, and it was an interesting experience. And I'm looking forward to the ability to give our students facilities that will help them have a better experience than some of us Gen Xers had.
Believe me, I concur as well. So we had that discussion a long time ago.
Yep.
I had one other, I'm sorry, unrelated.
No, please.
Sorry, I have opinions on locker rooms, who knew? I just really want to say thank you to the West Lafayette Schools Education Foundation. They have partnered with us on a great many things, and they really work hard on the day-to-day to enrich our schools with funding that's very necessary. And so I, for one, and just would like to express gratitude for them and their work.
Thank you. I concur. Mrs. Mumford.
I agree that it's muchly needed and actually has been needed for many years. But my big question is how we plan to pay for it. Looking at a $10 million project, and we have the Education Foundation, committing to a small portion with the hopes of raising it, is not enough funds to actually cover it. So my concern is, what is the plan besides just hopeful thinking that it will be covered by the foundation?
So the relationship between the school district and the foundation is such that we need to accept the money from the foundation as a first step toward moving toward this construction plan. And then we also would ask them to fundraise on our behalf. And please jump in, because I know you're very active with the foundation. So the nice thing about breaking it down into phases is that we can complete those phases as the fundraising allows. And would you like to add?
It'll be prioritized, and we'll spend the money that we have. And if we run out of money, we'll stop.
We'll stop spending it.
Yeah.
Phase one, this is a big reason, Mrs. Mumford, why we asked to break it into phases so that it actually could be done through steps. And so phase one, we would have the 1.6 million approximately, and then we would go to the Education Foundation and ask them to begin the fundraising process. And then when we had the funds to move forward, proceed with this first phase, that first phase would hopefully then people would see the fruit of it, and it would give the foundation opportunity to further promote the fundraising activities. With that also comes time to complete that one. And so would be a point where, so the 1.6 million, once it is on our books, becomes what we are putting forward for the phase one project. And over time, as we look at financial challenges and so forth, rainy day funds and so forth, what funds do we have available in our operations fund? We would see what kind of money we could put forth toward the next phase and give them the opportunity then to understand what type of fundraising for that next phase would be necessary. And that's why breaking it into these phases allows us to do that in a way that is doable.
Now, they raised money to help us with our previous construction. Have we ever received that money? think it was like 3.5 million.
That's what this is.
They're not helping with previous construction debt. They're now taking that money and putting it towards a new construction.
It was raised for the purpose of construction at the high school, so that is something that we could use for this particular project.
Now, why wasn't it used for the previous project? You know, I mean, that's my question. We have a foundation that came forward and said, we're going to raise money to help with this previous project, actually never gave that money to the school. Now they're coming to the school saying, we'll give part of that money we promised before to start a new project. I'd like to understand kind of these decisions a little bit better.
So it's actually not a new project. It's part of the unfinished work at the high school that Mr. Schreiner and Mr. Strode have been communicating to us with requests to consider looking at completing that ground floor. And that is for educational purposes.
Okay, thank you very much for all that information. I just put an
You're
M&M
looking
in
at
my
me,
mouth.
Mr. Schreiner.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Was there any, is that,
Just glad to hear you talk.
okay.
Mr. Wong, go
Question
ahead.
regarding this foundation. So my understanding, the foundation, we get collect money from donations. When donors pay money, they have some purpose. Say, I want this money spent for such things. So in this case, do you think our donors for this foundation, when we accept this money, we want to make sure we use the money according per the donors will. We don't want
Absolutely.
to, you see what I mean?
Yeah, the differences between directed and undirected donations.
So-called restricted.
Right, restricted or unrestricted.
Restricted, something, yeah, so.
Tom, do you want-
Mr. Shutt, you may want to speak to that, but that the board had very serious conversation about that. The Education Foundation, they wanted to make sure that it absolutely, when I attended some of those meetings, they wanted to make sure that it absolutely did go that direction. They had a lot of dialogue and they feel very comfortable with that. That is why they are now saying, let's get that part on the books and then let's start the process of fundraising if the school corporation wishes to make that request. Is that accurate, Tom?
That's accurate. I think you made a great point that we need to do something to show off that we are making progress to try to sell additional fundraising capabilities. And they're very careful with spending money that people donate for the reasons they want to donate their money.
Right. Mrs. Ware?
We initially find, and I have in my notes that we toured the school and really started to seriously talk about this on November 17th of 21. But I believe there were informal conversations long prior to this as the construction was being developed. This is not a new conversation. Is that?
No, the conversation about that ground floor was always in the overall remodel and additions to the junior, senior high school. We just think it ran out of steam about the time of the Performing Arts Center.
Correct.
And there were leadership changes with the foundation, and there was a pandemic, and a lot of things kind of happened. So we're just moving forward now in the same direction that we've always wanted to move forward, if I understand correctly. Okay.
More question.
Sure.
So I just shared Daisha's concern. So we break that in 4 phases. So basically, if we don't have fund, we just finish the phase 1. It won't hurt anything. We don't have any kind of hookup for finish all the other things. It's kind of separate, right? The 4
Right,
phases.
and that's not uncommon in large construction projects
So
to
it's very
take it in
common. Just, you
phases.
can break that clearly, different phases whenever you.
Typically break it up into standalone, which is what they did.
Mm-hmm.
You break it up into standalone projects so that we can do this part and then we don't have to do the other parts. They're standalone projects.
Okay, gotcha.
And that was the request that we made when we made the phasing, was to make it so that it was doable, so that we could work on one phase with minimal interruption and then move in later, or when we were able to fund it into the next phase.
Yes.
That was part of what happened with the weight room. If that's a prime example of a room that needed to be done, really, in my mind, that happened due to safety. There were some safety concerns with the previous weight room, and that was done as a standalone kind of early project. Is my recall correct on that one?
Yeah, the weight room is fairly minimal, kind of cosmetic changes.
Right.
Space didn't change. The orientation and equipment didn't change. There was new equipment and replaced broken mirrors and better lighting and flooring.
Flooring, yeah, okay.
Yeah, flooring. relatively,
Relative.
yeah, compared to.
We can bring Doug and or Wendy
Yeah.
to the April meeting or any, I think we used to do that. They used to come once a year and give a bit of an update
That's a
on
great
everything,
idea.
not just on this project. But
Right. And as
they
we
do a lot of great
proceed,
things.
they do. And as we proceed, I'm sure there will be architectural presentations and fundraising updates and things of that nature. So we just wanted to let you know that this is beginning. So, okay? Yeah.
Help me understand it. It says phase one will cost 2.6 million, but the foundation isn't giving us 2.6 million.
They're giving us 1.6 million because
Right.
that's what they have. And we're going to hold that in an account. And then we have it available to invest and grow while they are also going to their donors and saying, here's what we have planned and
So we're
soliciting.
not going to start phase one until we
Correct.
have 2.6 from them.
Correct.
Now, have we heard, and maybe I'm remembering correctly, I thought they raised 3.5 million previously. Why are they not giving us all that they had committed to give?
She told me, so the 1.6 is what they have invested in a CD right now at this time that will come due in the fall that they would then pass to us. There are some other donations that are kind of what I could say endowed in the future that will be, that is part of that larger amount that but we don't know when that is going to happen. Because people can, put in their estates that money is to go to the school corporate or the foundation, but that hasn't transpired yet, for lack of better words.
Sure, go ahead.
So Dr. Grana, I heard you talk about clearing rainy day fund. So basically, we don't have any obligations to put in some money for this project, right? We're still kind of waiting for the foundation.
Correct. At this time for this project, it would be the 1.6 million, and that's why it would be moved over into our accounts, and then they would start raising, as Mrs. Mumford asked, the difference in the funds to get to the 2.6. When we were at the 2.6 million projects, we would be prepared to begin that project. Right now, the foundation needs us to accept this money and then request that they start fundraising for us upon our request.
So right now, my understanding is they have invested their 1.6 million right now in CD. So when we get this money, do we have any ways to put them in a good ways? Have some place to make this money, maybe generate some interest
Yes.
or something like that?
You'll invest it.
Oh, yeah, we'll definitely invest it into CDs like we have been and hopefully get some great returns from that. And we would invest that in a separate investment account because it would be its own construction fund. But yes, I would definitely invest that money.
So more than, other than this kind of, we take care of this 1.6 million, other than that, what other obligations or something we got to do in order to accept this 1.6 million?
We'll just vote on it in April, that's all.
Okay.
I just wanted you to be aware that that was coming and have time to ask questions or, think about locker rooms. So, okay?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. All right, information to the board is next. And really the only thing I have is that the legislative session is winding down and our legislators are trying to finish up by March 8th. This year has been fairly quiet for K through 12 education bills, and I am happy to report there isn't really anything too terrible on the horizon, and that's one in a row. So let's go to do you have anything for information or do you want to go later?
My report?
Yes.
I would be happy to go.
I don't know why it says Austin there.
Okay,
Griner.
yeah, I would be happy to report. So this is kind of lengthy, but it's fun lengthy. I decided after watching that amazing musical, wow, that I was going to report out on some positive things happening. And Mrs. Cronk and I spent some time in the schools this past week, so we added those because it was so amazing. And so I just wanted to report out on a few things. And our schools, our teachers, our students, our families are absolutely amazing. That's what you're going to hear from this. So I'm going to hit on some curricular and some extracurricular activities that I was able to personally experience this past week. And as you know, we have so many great things going on in our district that I cannot personally hit them all. But these are just a few. And so if I leave something out, know that it's because you could go on forever. And that's what I discovered as I was writing some of these down. I was inspired by My Fair Lady, though. What a great performance our high school students did with the My Fair Lady performance, this musical, this past weekend. Mrs. Greiner and I had the opportunity to attend on Saturday. Congratulations to our students and to our directors Carrie Francis, Carol Letcher, and Michael Bennett. Truly commendable work. Thank you to our students, thank you to our staff, and our parents for a job well done. Then I was able to go out with Mrs. Kroc to Willis on Friday, and then we were invited to head on over to the literature fair at the high school, and we heard some amazing presentations. We saw some just amazing presentations of data, of information, and then we heard them speak so well. Here's what Mrs. Kroc and I can tell you, and as we just celebrated from one building to the next and back to the office. Our students produce quality work. Our students research and develop impressive presentations. Our students are impressively well-spoken when preparing and then presenting their findings, and they present it with passion, and they present it very confidently. Simply amazing exhibitions by our students with the facilitative support of our amazing staff. And then we know that the support of our families has our students coming to school ready to learn. Congratulations to Willis's Sharanya Carr. She's heading to the nationals again for her spelling bee competition. This is the second year in the row for Sharanya to head to the nationals. You may recall that she attended nationals last year and was 74th. So here we are with take two, and we are very proud of her. So congratulations to capital S-H-A-R-A-N-Y-A, Sharanya. Also, congratulations to our boys basketball team for this becoming sectional champs. We are so proud of them. We're proud of our boys for their commitment and their hard work. We're also proud of Coach Van Arsdale and his entire coaching staff for the dedication and expertise that he brings to the team. We wish the team good luck at regionals this coming Saturday. Our robotics team isn't far behind with excitement. They traveled to Mishawaka this weekend and they experienced success this weekend too. This is the third straight district event that they have taken home the gold. They received the Sustainability Award. Their next competition is in Plainfield on March 23rd and 24th, and they will be co-hosting the state championship on April 6th and 7th at Lafayette Jeff. We've already marked our calendar and are excited for that date. She Devils dance team, they're right there with us. They placed in the top 4 top teams at state in every category this weekend. The team also took home the highest palm scores in She Devils history. We're proud of their growth. We're proud of their hard work, and we are certainly proud of the coaches and all adults that bring this team to the reality of the success that they experience. I had the great pleasure, along with Mrs. Kroc, she actually sat beside me, to attend the Golden Apple Award. Several of us were able to attend. I believe we know that Mr. Wong was there too. He sat beside me too. We were able to go there to this ceremony and celebrate our own John Levy for receiving this award. We're grateful for Mr. Levy's passion and expertise. His acceptance speech was heartfelt, heartwarming. Michelle almost cried. For real, yeah. You could just feel his passion that he brings to our district in his speech. It was among the best, if not the best. Sorry, everybody else that did a speech. His passion was genuine, and his care and affection for his own children was felt. I felt that really, really well. Went home and hugged all my kids because of it. And I left reflecting, for real, on our entire staff, thinking about just how fortunate we are in this district for the expertise, commitment, dedication, excitement that we have in our elementaries building, our intermediate building, and our junior high building. And we saw that when we were out visiting, as well as when we hear teachers like Mr. Levy accepting that great award. So many more great things that I could celebrate in our district, but I cannot attend everything. And so I know I missed something, but these are just a few points of pride that I wanted to share with us to illustrate why we're here and why we do what we do and why you feel that excitement in our heart as we even speak about this. Finally, something exciting for our students and our teachers too. Remember that next week is spring break, and so we will be on break the week of March 10th. We wish safe travels to all of our families who will be traveling over the break.
And I would just like to say that I learned so much more about 1400s English than Dr. Greiner did. And I did much better at the quiz that the young lady.
Okay, they quizzed us after we had to pet a shape. Okay, if you don't know what a shape is, you need to study this. And I petted the I tried to take it. She's like, I said, pet it, don't take it. So I was like, I'm so sorry. But then she wanted to quiz us. So I said, Mrs. Cronk will do that. But as I thought, I can do some of these, I started to answer. She said, you said you didn't want to do this. So they shushed me.
Yep. You guys are fun. All right, thank you for that update.
Our pleasure.
We'll just start with Mrs. Mumford and work our way toward me if you want to give your update for the Public Schools Foundation.
Spring grants for the teachers are open until March 6th. The Cupcake Bake-Off was February 15th. And then I just have a general question. Last month, it ended before you could address committee assignments. You've removed lots of school board members from a variety of committees, so I would like you to share more about that, please.
About the committees. Yeah, go ahead and finish the reports and I'll pull up that list from last month. Thank you. Mr. Wong, go ahead.
There's some update from the park and recreation. So right now they are kind of they're doing the recreating impact fee study. So they find vendors to do that study, basically collect fees from the apartment, the business. So the whole process will take maybe 8 to 9 months. So eventually we will have some city ordinance to collect the fees to support our park and recreation. And another thing, there's a Carson Family Park. The construction is running very well, and the field trip is available. So if somebody interested, can contact them. They can arrange the field trip to see what's going on with there. And the major things I want to share with other people is the after program, their after program and their summer camps. Especially the summer camp, they have 125 in wellness center and 50 spot in nature center, all gone in 1 minute. So they are Dr. David Pereira. He's the board chairman president. So he has some interest to work with our schools and see if we can increase the capacities for the summer camp and also after school programs. So I think Dr. Grant already worked with them, so I really appreciated their quick actions on that. I really appreciate that. And so that's that things. And also the wellness center, they also see if our high school can provide some part-time or summer jobs for them, such as lifeguard or something. So I told them I just forward you a request to Dr. Granner and our school admins, and they can work with them. Thank you. And another thing worth to mention is after the meetings and the one community members talk to me regarding the concerns about our school policy vendor change and the rewriting effort. And she suggests that we school board don't do this policy rewriting effort at this time. So I just forwarded her concerns to our school board. And that's all for the park and recreation. And one thing I'm thinking about this policy, we're not rewriting things. I think maybe we can have a kind of policy committees. I know we have different opinions, but just my thought, we have 7 members. Each of us have different schedules. Somebody maybe can more flexible and work for, spend more time working on the policies. And then we can, during these things, we can save some time in the meetings and also working sessions. And then this also help us to build a kind of unified, collaborative board members, board teams. So that's just some of my thought. Thank you.
Okay, we did have a policy committee and there was a lot of suspicion about it, so we decided to do it this way. And I guess that kind of leads to the question Mrs. Mumford asked, which was why the committees were the way they were. And you're correct, I didn't get to talk about that last month. But as board chair, one of my responsibilities is assigning committees. And I felt that when I first came on the board, there were a lot of different committee assignments. And I felt like that gave the mistaken impression that the board needed to have its fingers in a lot of different things. And so I whittled it down to the most important ones, the ones that, like the foundations and the parks, really directly affect our students and our staff, and left the others to our administration to bring to us when there's something we need to discuss. And so that's why I didn't assign a policy committee, and it's something we could certainly talk about. But I think the way things went tonight was not bad. I think we got more done than I thought we would. I think it went fairly smoothly, and with a little more practice and a little more anticipation of the flow of the documents, it'll be smoother every month. I think that, so I left myself as legislative liaison on when I did the committee assignments, because that's a particular passion of mine. It has been since I was on the debate team in high school. And it's a lot of work once a year, which is a lot more manageable than a lot of work all year long. So, and Mrs. Witt has been on board teacher discussion for quite a few years now. She and I served on that committee together last year, and I barely spoke because you had everything covered. So I felt like that was a really appropriate position for you. And similarly, Mr. Marley has been on the RDC for a very long time, and that was a very appropriate position for him, and one that we didn't want to let go of. Sorry, names, Mr. Schott with the foundation, same thing. And Dr. Yin had served on glass the previous year, I believe, is that correct? You had, yeah, and you still, so this is your second or third year? Okay, so, and with letting go of some other committee assignments, I felt like the Parks Board was one that we wanted to continue that relationship, and so you were given that one. And Mrs. Mumford, the foundation in Tippecanoe County, is another one that's important and that affects our students and teachers directly. So, Mrs. Witt?
I was just going to give a little bit of backstory on this one. When Dr. Greiner joined the school corporation and I became board chair at the same time, one of the early meetings we had was when he looked at the committee listing, he said, "I've never seen anything like this. This is not normal." And I said, well, this is how we have done it in West Lafayette for a lot of years. I think there was, on my part, a desire to better engage board members and help them feel their opinions were really valued. And so I doubled down, and we really even increased the number of committees, and that strategy was not successful. And so I understand completely the conversation about removing the quantity of committees has been on the table for 2 years now, and I appreciate that you've done it so that we can kind of benefit and allow our staff to do their jobs from that. So.
And lists like that, I think, tend to grow over time. You know, it's, oh, well, this is important too. We'll put someone on that. And sometimes you just need to take it down to the bones and start over. And there may be more committee assignments that come, but I don't know that right now policy is one that we should, I mean, certainly I'll talk about that with Dr. Greiner and see where he thinks we should go. But I'd like to give what we did tonight a chance to kind of settle and see if we can make some good progress with that approach. Thank you. So, Ms. Witt, would you like, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Regarding back to the policy committee, I'm okay either way. And I appreciate Ms. Witt, and also you have more committees, and Ms. Anderson have fewer. I mean, each one have its own approach styles. I'm okay either way, and I appreciate. But I just say, no matter what, if we decide to have policy committees, I'm available to serve in there. So
thank you. I appreciate your interest in that,
no
and
problem.
I will make a note.
I had a question on committees that I thought were required, school board members are required to be on. So we don't have anyone assigned. Is negotiations, school board members, that's just optional, or are they required? The wellness committee, wait, those I thought were all required. But
Negotiations is required, and Mrs. Austin communicated back to the board that when the negotiation season opens, she would appoint somebody to that. I would say most school corporations do the board chair. However, Mr. Marley has years of experience, and that would be up to Mrs. Austin to determine. And the wellness committee, it is written in policy that there needs to be a board member present in that committee, and they meet, I think the current policy is once or twice a year. So it's not a really extensive one. And in that situation, it could be in policy, and the board chair would assign somebody to attend on behalf of the board and report back, but it doesn't necessarily have to be an ongoing assignment to meet the policy. So sorry, I answered your question.
I appreciate it. And, you know, if I assign myself to negotiations and then all the negotiations are a night when I've got my ballet class, then I'm not going to be able to be there. And so it would be important to have that flexibility. So codifying something that happens once a year and that I don't have control over the schedule of didn't seem like a really efficient way. But when Mrs. Fitzsimmons decides it's time to have the wellness policy committee, if I'm available, I'll go, because the legislative thing only happens from January through March or April. And if I'm not available, then I'll make that available to the rest of you, and we'll see what happens. That is my plan anyway. We'll see how it goes. Maybe next year we'll do something new. Did you have a committee report for us?
I do have a committee report. Would you like to hear?
Super.
Okay. Board teacher discussion. They met on Thursday, February the 15th. And it, as always, the teachers kind of started off and are grateful for the communicative and collaborative environment between our school and board and the teachers. Dr. Reiner recapped the principal search and offered to answer any questions related to that. The April Professional Development Day, you may have heard in the news that other school corporations are closed for the eclipse, but we, by some miracle, had arranged for a professional development day that day already. So there was some conversation about how that would work out. Already started conversations for planning for school year 24-25 and what that looks like. And they start, this is normal this time of year, that they start really planning and anticipating needs for next year. And also just kind of an update, Mrs. Cronk helped us all understand a little bit better the legislation and tax assessment question that's been up in front of us for a while. So that was very helpful information. I know the teachers really appreciated that. As always, it was a lovely meeting.
Great, thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
With the upcoming discussion of class sizes, was there any discussion? Right now we have 5th grade with 25 kids in a class. Did the teachers have any opinion or care?
Yeah, actually, that was specifically discussed. Currently, there are 3 classrooms at 25. There's 1 at 23. The remainder are at 24. The teachers, there happen to be 2 5th grade teachers who are on that committee, on-board teacher discussion, and they were very grateful for some furniture rearrangement that was done very promptly to kind of free up a little bit more space in their classroom. There wasn't undue concern expressed about the certain class sizes, and in fact, some classes were smaller after the January break. So I think what I heard from teachers is that they were confident in the process moving forward and the evaluation of what was right on class sizes by the principals and central office. A lot of confidence expressed about the process.
Thank you.
Thanks. Dr. Yin, how about glass? Would you like to share with us?
Sure. School psychologist and a speech language pathologist in great needs, so glass here are some online ones currently. And recently they surveyed the school psychologists about their working environment and the needs, and they proposed some general strategies and the recruitment strategies, such as develop a relationship and partner with a higher education institution to increase the supply, and offer paid internship, offer signing bonus, and that could be paid over the course of the school year, and so on. There are many, sounds like very promising, and I really appreciate their hard work. And the next meeting will be on April 16th from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock. They welcome public comments for that. And another thing related to actually one committee member's comments regarding the zoning committee zoning discussion about transit housing. Actually, as a resident, I went to the meetings twice and then spoke there to advocate to keep houses in our district for families rather than Airbnb. And unfortunately, at the last meeting, one house got a permission, even though that request sounds weak according to the audience there. So I wonder whether we can, however, I cannot represent our school district. I can only speak as a resident. So I wonder whether we can send any representative and as for our district to speak there to advocate to keep more houses. And before city council members and mayors have representative there to speak. And so I wonder whether we can, in the future, when petitions were submitted, we can send somebody there to speak for us.
I also looked at the agenda for that meeting, but unfortunately I had a sick child, so I wasn't able to go. I had intended to try. But if board members are interested, send me an email and we'll talk about it, about having a standing committee member for that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Schott.
West Lafayette Schools Education Foundation, perhaps you've heard of them, received a record number of applicants for scholarships this year, 67 students. This is a wonderful response and also shows the growing need for support to pursue higher education. 2024 Wall of Pride class will be announced later this week with the induction ceremony scheduled for April 11 and 12. And registration is open for Scarlet and Gray Dinner and Auction on April 19th. Visit the WLSCF.org website for a link to the event site and to purchase tickets.
Great. And Mr. Marley.
All right, the Redevelopment Commission for West Lafayette met back on January 17th and again, February 21st. We have two new members, Arnold Chen and Kristen Edmondson have now joined us. Updates on construction projects, Case and Family Park, the boat house is under construction, as is the restroom facility. We continue to work on public safety design. We're going to build a new public safety center. It's going to be really nice, and just stay tuned on that. We had a declaratory resolution in the Levy Village redevelopment plan. There's a new project going up down there, 7 stories tall, probably 1,200 bedrooms plus, retail on the bottom floor. And there's going to be some realignment in the levee. We're going to lay out a grid pattern. And so there's an accommodation being made for this project. And so you can all picture it. Everybody's been to Bruno's. Bruno's is part of this site, as is Puccini's and a couple restaurants down the street from Puccini's. So it's going to cover that, but that street's going to straighten out. And they're going to get a $5.5 million bond that'll be repaid from the property taxes on that project. That project's probably going to be $250 million, give or take, big numbers. And it's going to take a couple years to build. We agreed to pay for a new platform fire truck with a ladder. You want to guess how much that cost?
I'm going to guess $3 million.
You're close. $2.393 million.
I was in the ballpark.
And we got to order it now. It won't be here for a couple of years, so isn't that great? So we paid for that, or we're going to pay for that. Cherry Lane Trail project was approved. That's a cost of almost $2.7 million. And so Cherry Lane's being improved. You know, it's going through the golf course. It's going to go around the clubhouse. And so we're going to put in a new pedestrian way so people can jog and ride their bikes safely instead of taking their lives in their own hands. Request for bids, Salisbury Street improvements, Cumberland and LaGrange improvements, Grant, Leslie, Salisbury, and again, Cherry Lane. Also going to take bids to resurface McCormick Road. and improve that. That road is actually an old county road, and there's no shoulder to it, so we're going to improve that. Other than that, there's a little quit claim deed going on in the same levy project. We're going to have some public park space down there, which is going to be really cool. Last but not least, there was an update from APA Consulting, and they are the ones that are doing our early child education feasibility work. There really wasn't anything of substance, I would say. It's more early stages, a lot of surveying, a lot of reaching out into the community and collecting input. So there'll be more of that coming up. I'll try to keep you up to date as that goes forward. That's all I got for you tonight.
Terrific.
Thanks.
I know we love a survey. Okay.
Yeah, good stuff.
I have no intention of meeting at 7:00 a.m. ever. You don't want to see me at that time of day, but the work session is scheduled if something catastrophic happens. Otherwise, I intend to do it just like we did tonight. Next month, have our work session at 5, get through what we can, and then convene the regular board meeting at 6 on April 8th right here. Upcoming dates of interest include the end of the 9 weeks grading period on March 8th, which will begin spring break from the 11th to the 15th, and school resumes on the 18th. I know the Austins are very much looking forward to the break. And there will be no school on April 8th. Do not look at the eclipse with your bare eyes. Call me. I have eclipse glasses. Or I have a dealer. Anyway, if there's nothing else for the good of the order, I will take a motion to adjourn, because I remembered to get a motion to adjourn. Moved by Mrs. Witt, seconded by Mr. Wong. All in favor, please raise your hand. That's everybody, Mrs. Julian. We are adjourned. Thank you.